Yeah, you know. Turn your heads left and right when you cross the streets. You know what time it is. It is time for another overtime, every time march. We're not gonna go to the mountain because we went yesterday. My second home, my mistress, my doctor. We went that yesterday and the day before. So now we're gonna go by the river because tomorrow, Friday before the Sabbath, we're gonna go to the mountain, and then over the Sabbath we're probably gonna go to the mountain again and again and again. My second home. So you know, sometimes it's good to change a little bit, do a little bit of change. So last time we went that direction. This time we're gonna go the opposite direction as we go zig and zag. Look at those beautiful yellow flowers. You know that I love those yellows. And gotta commence begin. Gratitude, grateful, thankful. My rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got food and coffee, and saw some public works being done. So I gotta salute the public workers of the North American Collectif, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, and the plumbers. A call to my brothers and sisters in the USA. As a Democratic Republican Democrat, 50-50, androgynous, pansexual, aspie, artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical, theoretical, honest, and theorist, loving some of that pot of flowers there. Please, 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 the deployment of the National Guard and, of course, the Marines. Sportsmanship in regards to all the affairs of the police and our armed forces. Sportsmanship. I'm watching you like a hawk, N.A.C.W.P. Otherwise you get fouled on the play just like that gridiron. False start, unnecessary roughness. You get that? Unnecessary roughness. Super important, you know, to apply in the North American Collectif across the 63. The 10 provinces, 50 states, and 3 territories. Do the math, 10 plus 50 plus 3, that's 63 to apply at all times between the interactions of the citizens and the security forces apparatus. Sportsmanship conduct, you know, as I'm calling for the creation of the Dragon Army and have been and will continue to create the Dragon Army condition. The Dragon Army, aka North American Integrated S.S.D Legion, the Security and Service Defense Legion, as I go now on this marching in these steel toe boots for the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, plumbers, electricians, and those bakers and those butchers and those nurses and those doctors and those firefighters and all those involved, you know, in the production, distribution of food. And that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on that Rock&Roll, my fellow cousins, citizens there. Do it on the go now, and that's what we gotta get doing on that go, and that's what we gotta get doing for my fellow citizens here to get it on the roll with that. And we gotta get on that conditioning of our interaction to be as sportsmanlike as we can, you know, because it's tough times, myself included. And last night, full moon, maybe moody, but I gotta be grateful I'm no longer suicidal and depressed. You know, unfortunately, my community, the S.S.D community, which is a tiny, small, neurodivergent community, and you know, just like my friend was doing some math before, and you know, we did some math together, and I love doing math, and you know, I got a little bit of aspiness. Said it got too loud and screaming. I said I'm not screaming, but you know, maybe the tone of voice, maybe a little bit of that aspy frustrations, but you know, that's just my brain is neurodivergent, and I have these mutations like Aspies. We have these brain mutations at the micro level, and we see the world differently. So for us, social interaction, certain interactions are more weird, awkward, and abnormal, but not when it comes to my special trinity of theories, you know. And I turned the street here prudently, and of course, I am a philosopher, an independent geopolitical, theoretical, honest, and theorist, an artist, athlete, and independent geopolitical, theoretical, honest, and theorist, and mystic with that. And of course, my theories, propositions, and protocols are fundamentally for a public-private partnership. That's why the situation unfolding in the United States, we need to consider giving some amnesty. I understand if, of course, certain XYZ individuals have had a long history of criminal conviction, let's say 44 criminal conviction over the past 3 years and a half, or 44 over the past 7 years, even 11 years. That means that you have several convictions every other season, or every other week, or every other second week, or every other month. I understand there must be some justice, you know, and I'm not perfect, far from it, but we got to make a concordium, public-private partnership base, centrism for the North American Collectif, and as we're gonna fuse Canada and United States in a public-private partnership. Here we gotta continue making the great linguistic compromise of the French language, which we continue to do and which we have continued to do for so long. And as somebody who's a Quebecer, Canadian, North American, Canadian American, born in the United States, 3 times post 76, once as a woman, twice as a man, once as a woman, twice as a man. And you know, sometimes we need to apologize ourselves, and you gotta de-apologize. Granddaddy Trump, you know, it's Dragon versus Trump since 2018, and geopolitically that was a mistake to impose tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel back in 2018, and have been and will since continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match. And I'm calling for the building of Canada joint as we're gonna create a common passport, do a great census across the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories that's going to fuse in a democratic Republican type of way, public-private partnership. And of course, we're going to build the greatest Imperial Coliseum for sports in perpetuities, on the Canadian-US border, the most majestic sports complex ever built. Let's do it. 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. The Caesar Superdome was used to be known as the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Now it's known as the Louisiana. Before it was also known as the Louisiana, so it changed names a few times, just like yours truly changed some names. So construction workers gonna put some massages, rock and roll on the table, because I know blah 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 will not build edifices, and construction workers, it takes that brains and muscle, and it's a hard job. And I am a fanatic, a little bit of a fetish about cranes, and I always sing for the construction workers 24/7, that rock and roll for the cranes, you know. And problem in my community, Aspis, is that we have a very high unemployment rate. I discussed it in the past. I will address it today, of course, because it's dear to my heart, you know. And of course, the problematics with the problematics is, of course, that we Aspis have, of course, we Aspis. Look at that beautiful thing. Wow, isn't that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful? That's what we got, man. Beautiful. Look at that. Hey, that's a beautiful pot. Flowers there. And you gotta salute the public workers anyway. So, you know, Donald Trump, that was the mistake. And continuing imposing tariffs on Canada is a mistake. Because I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. And I gotta say enough of my faith. And of course, I gotta state that I predicted what's happening now back in 2019, in October, November. I had predicted what's happening now back in 2019. Back in 2019, I had predicted what's happening now. See how my brain works now that I see this railroad, these highways full of trucks. I know that the trucks and the truckers go, rock and roll for the truckers across the 63, carrying the bacon, the cheese, the lettuce, those unloading, those loading the docks. It takes the Centrist Democratic Republican North American Collective Workers Party for the fusion of Canada and United States thereof. The N.A.C.W. Let's get the N.A.C.P.W. And that's how we gotta get doing with that. And that's how we gotta get doing with the drill. We gotta doing on the drill side of things, and we gotta get it on the love side of things here. And I'm gonna press the button, but I'm gonna use this one, you know. I'm gonna use this one because if I put the hand there, it might be microbes and bacteria germs, because I don't know how many people touched it, but nonetheless, see how we go with that. That's how we gotta go with the XYZ things. And here we gotta do a little bit of meditation, because see, we got a train over there, and that train, of course, goes east and west. So all our, of course, trains, all the trains across the North American Collective are open for sabotage and espionage, you know, are open for sabotage and espionage. So of course, basically, all our trains are open for sabotage and espionage, and that's what it is with that, and that's what it is with the go, and that's what it is with the rock and roll, you know. Since we are open for sabotage and espionage, that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get rock and rolling with the left and the right and the center, because we're open for sabotage and espionage, you know. And of course, all the things that are carried by trains and by planes, mostly by trains and by the truckers. Gotta salute the train conductors and the truckers, you know, the truckers and the train conductors. Speaking of the devil, across the 63, and this is 2023, we had the merger of the Canadian Pacific, Kansas City, and we gotta secure, and I gotta be let know with the Dragon Army contingent that we gotta create integrated based on my new 911 Dragon Total North American Collective 911 implementation of the new 911 philosophies for total security, total service, total defense integrated across the 63. I gotta know coast to coast, ocean to ocean, everything that's coming in. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean, by the ports and the airports. See those rocks? Maybe those are the rocks now for the North American people's Imperial Coliseum, for the Forgotten Goddess Temple. See the rocks there? They're carrying rocks. Maybe they're gonna build the House of the Dragon, the Scarlet Crimson House of the Dragon, part of the 4 buildings that I will to build, or the People's Rainbow People's Palace for my fellow neurodivergent communities. My fellow neurodivergent communities and LGBTQ communities, or those are the rocks being carried for the building on the border of the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, which I'm calling to be the biggest ever built sports arena for sports 24/7, sports and fitness in perpetuity, to be built on the Canadian-US border. And of course, where me and Donald Trump will have the inauguration match. Me and Donald Trump, we're gonna fight on an inauguration match, because I've been challenging Donald Trump since 2018. That was a mistake, imposing tariffs on Canada. No way to invite us by bullying and by tariffs. You got to invite us properly by baking some pies, 50 pies plus 13. That's 13 for the Canadian states, 50 for the 50 states, for the kingdom, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, as we're gonna merge. And of course, from the Mountain Mount Royal, the Dragon Trump Summit, and then me and Donald Trump are gonna fight in the boxing match on the Canadian-US border. I got those red gloves in my red backpack, in the red jeans that I'm wearing, auctioning them for $1 million to start giving half to my anonymous friend and buying the contingency as the train operators across the 63. As I mentioned a priori, we have the merging now of Kansas Pacific and CP, Canadian Pacific, and Kansas City Rail merged, and for the first time ever in the history of North American, of course, railway history, we can reach from Canada to Mexico by rail. Canada to Mexico by rail. It merged in 2023 during COVID, and I gotta celebrate today, as I'm carpe diem every day. My survival of COVID is my surviving the coronavirus. I was really sick and diseased. You see that one's going east, the one's going north. Correction. The cars are going north. One of the trains is going east, the other north. So I'm gonna meditate and salute all the train conductors, all the truckers, all the butchers, all the bakers, all the nurses. And you know, I gotta be let known everything that's coming in. I already do a meditation, have a little bit of awareness, but my knowledge, information, and awareness can increase every second, every minute, every day. And of course, for the North American centric collective security, collective defense, collective services, I'm calling for the implementation of the new 911 Dragon North American Collective Initiative for the total service, total security, total defense, as of course my philosophical initiative known as the S.S.D, Security, Service and Defense, or TSSD, Total Security, Total Service, Total Defense, by that the implementation of the new 911 North American Integrated Citizen Protocols. Of course, it's something that I've written in the past 7 years, because most of my writings that I'm dictating orally, of course in a communicative manner, is dates from back post summer 2017, post summer 2017, when I crossed Canada coast to coast, and these trains going east, that one's going west, that one's going east, makes me think of exactly when I crossed Canada coast to coast in 2017. Prior to that date, I was depressed, I was suicidal. Crossing Canada made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. I've established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians who are my family, Quebecers, Canadians, North Americans, and I gotta salute, and of course, the North American Collective, Canada, United States, as we're gonna fuse, merge, create a common passport, and of course, all my family who come to join us here from all over the world in the kingdom of the 63 for the Imperium, and of course my brothers and sisters in Mexico, because like I said aforementioned, the Canadian Pacific and the Kansas City, the Kansas National and the Canadian Pacific has merged back in 2017. There was a correction 2023 there was that merger. I crossed Canada in 2017, more than 7 years ago, and ever since then, before that I was depressed, I was suicidal. I started my fitness journey, lost between 80 and 93 pounds as I stand here in the sun, going a little bit around about to the river and back, to my headquarters. Yesterday clocked in more than 5, the day before clocked in more than 7, Monday clocked in more than 6, so it adds up. My marching in steps and military grade boots, which I'm auctioning. So this week I already marched more than the generals of the collective North American civilization, more than the generals of NATO, and yours truly right here, right now, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, and the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, the bakers. So please, 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 as somebody who has served in 2 different wars, 156 years apart, in the U.S. Army, as you got to read that George Patton Through a Glass Darkly, which I guess at West Point or at military academies, or it should be a must-read for anybody serving in the U.S. Armed Forces and prior also in the Canadian Armed Forces. Through a Glass Darkly, one of my favorite poems, where George Patton outlines and discusses his belief he was a mystic like I am a mystic. Of course, he also believed in reincarnations as I do, but never did he mention that he was my wife there about approximately 2,600 years ago. He was my wife. George Patton was my wife. And of course, now, once I was his wife. That's why now today, because I was sometimes born a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a woman, a woman, a woman, a man. That's why now you get that 50-50, you know. That's why now you get that 50-50. So for the truckers, the bakers, the nurses, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, my brothers and sisters, sportsmanship. I don't want any unnecessary roughness, any unnecessary roughness when dealing, of course, with our brothers and sisters who oppose certain views. And you know, most of the views, most of the policies by Donald Trump, I counterpoise them with my democratic republicanism, but we're not enemies. Unfortunately, we have enemies, and my main concern is these protests could be spreading, and of course my main concern is foreign external outside influence. As an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, and because I have Asperger's, that is my special interest. So Aspies, we have special interests just like other Aspies, and we're not a big community. We're a small tiny fraction of the population, and of course it's due to these mutations of the brain that certain other things can be more difficult for us, our comprehension. And unfortunately there's a very way too high level of unemployment. So it's 11 times higher than the majority of the population. The neurotypicals, 99.56% of neurotypicals, of course, you constitute the majority of the population, and it is 11 times higher. And it is 11 times higher. It is 11 times higher, of course. So that means that it's between 60 and 90 for Aspies, compared to the regular majority of the population, which lies between 4 and 10 or 11. So it's 11 times higher, the unemployment. Unfortunately, I had many jobs in the past 7 years, but maintaining them long term has been difficult because of this misunderstanding, mislabeling as mental Asperger's. Being an Aspie is not being mentally ill. Asperger's is not a mental illness. It is just a neurodivergence. It's just that our brain is mutated, and we see the world with a different lens. And our social comprehension, we can be vulnerable in certain discussions, matters. Of course, we have these vulnerabilities. We have these vulnerabilities in certain matters, and that's why we have certain vulnerabilities in relation to our relation, and a priori to certain relations where we are, of course, more vulnerable in certain circumstances. And we can be, of course, pretty intense, and we are pretty intense in certain things of nature and civilization, and that's why we have to be sometimes aware. I'm just gonna go see certain things here and make sure that we got some of those dictums, and make sure we got some of those LOV there to get a little bit of that loving, and make sure we got some of that. I just want to pass through here a bit and see the flag. And so basically, Asperger's is not a mental illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition. It makes us Aspies predisposed to those special interests. And my holy trinity is 24/7. Geopolitics, the study, the analysis of geopolitics. I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, and sports and fitness, and of course sports and fitness and rock and roll. So that's my holy trinity, and I always rock and roll with that, and always rock and roll for the farmers, and for the butchers, and for the bakers, for the nurses, for the doctors, for the firefighters, for the electricians and the plumbers and the bakers and the nurses. And of course my theories and implementation of my trinity of theories is what I'm calling for and advocating, and has been and am and will continue to advocate for that. And that's how we gotta get drilling, and we gotta get on that proposition to, of course, integrate, and to, of course, be aware that our civilizational collective requires, at least the North American civilizational collective requires, my trinity of theories, of which the CIT, citizen integration theory, the DRT, debt refusion theory, and the DFT democratic fusion theory. The DFT democratic fusion theory, and that's what is required, and that's what we're gonna have to get drilling with that and get the implementation of my holy trinity of theories ASAP, especially the DRT. So as P's, we have these brain mutations, and due to these brain mutations, our brains function on a different, not gonna, maybe frequency in a way, but in all things we can agree, we can build bridges, and it's constantly building bridges between myself, you know, as a neurodivergent and S.S.D, consequently with my fellow neurotypicals, which of course you constitute the majority of the population. The majority of the population is constituted by neurotypicals, and that's what it is with that. And believe it or not, I found a cracked melon on the road. I gotta put it up. See, I found a cracked melon, and I'm not gonna let it go to waste. I guess I saved it from being crushed by cars, but I'm just gonna put it in the back. And I have to eat it tonight. First one, this type, the watermelon like this. First type of for the summer, because I donated yesterday. I had a yellow melon, so I'm gonna do the geopolitics of the melon. No food waste, no food waste, no food waste. I tried my best. As a matter of fact, I just put the compost, and before I got this donated, and these I'm gonna give my anonymous friend because they're good gluten free, and I got this little food, and I have this bread as well. So I love this bread, and it's gonna be nice eating. And see, these are the gloves. These are the gloves. These are the gloves. These are the gloves. That my anonymous friend gifted. So auctioning them for a million to give half to my anonymous friend, and that's how we're gonna get drilling. And these are the red gloves with that. And I got them about 6 years ago when I first started challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match. And if I get hungry on the way, well, I got some apples. So that's good on Rock&Roll to go, you know, and I got a little bit of the hat. Gonna put the Habs hat for next season. Please reduce the ticket costs by 44.9%. Reduce the ticket costs, and I'm blessed. It's gonna have to be eaten. Product of grown in Mexico. Wash before eating. Seedless. It's seedless. Seedless one. So I'm gonna put it there, and this I'm gonna put there, and I'm gonna put the gloves. Put the gloves on the side like that, right? And then the other gloves. There we go. And these I'm gonna put there for my anonymous friend, and this I'm gonna put on the top. So now we got a heavier backpack, so it's gonna add to the workout. So now it's about almost 45 pounds, I would say. Almost 45 pounds, because I got other stuff here. So it's military grade, military style. Let's say it's all full of food. About, I would estimate it at almost 45, 44, not kilos though, pounds to be specific, not kilos but pounds. The whole bag, about. That's what I estimate it to be. So now we got an extra dimension. We got some heavier backpacks, so just make sure it's solid on the back. No military style. Got, due to Asperger's, there's certain clumsiness, but I'm not clumsy when I march, when I dance. Dancing being my favorite sport, you know. But Aspies, we tend to have certain clumsiness, you know. But now when I work out or train or exercise, or when I go on the marches, and because I'm super focused, super concentrated, super intense, so of course that is something which we have to be relational about, and we have to be admitting about that relation, and that is something which we have to admit. And you know, it's cracked a bit, so it probably fell from a car, and maybe, I don't know, if another car would have passed, it would have probably just broke it all. So I saved it, and I'm gonna wash the internals because maybe there's a bit of dust, and I'm gonna smell it, you know, because not to be overly paranoid, but you know, you got sensitive issues today with the new this week and last week, the agro-terrorism, but of course these are grown in Mexico, and of course we have to make a deal with Mexico as well, you know. Mexico as well is part of the North American Collectif, and I made an effort to learn some Spanish. I speak Spanish at home as well, sometimes to practice. It's mostly English, French, and Spanish. English, French, Spanish, and English, French, Spanish. Gonna salute the bus drivers. Saluting those bus drivers there who passed, and I don't know, people are stressed. There's a lot of strikes here in Quebec and Montreal and throughout the North American Collectif. So sportsmanship, keep in mind that a lot of the population is also financially stressed, you know. So as an officer of the law, our brothers and sisters in uniform, we gotta integrate also the service, you know, service, security service and protect. And also we gotta take the services to the 21st century. The body is a temple for pleasure and purpose. That's why we gotta, millionaires and billionaires, Wall Street, we gotta step up as well to the table, on the new table that I got, and a new table on the mountain, new table that I got, and a new table on the mountain. You know, sometimes that's why we gotta get drilling. And the whole mountain I get thrown with that. And here in Hawk Island, Montreal, and me and Aspies, the problem is our community suffers from very high unemployment rates. Unemployment is 11 times. So for one neurotypical, and you neurotypicals constitute the 99.56%, compared to an Aspie who, like me, is part of this 0.44%, less than 1 percentile, less than half of a percent of people in North America, citizens, have Asperger's. It's rare. Most of the people have not even heard of Asperger's, really. Only when I tell them, a lot of people say, "Oh yes, it's part of the autism. It's HFA, high functioning autism." They merge, but I still utilize the word Asperger's rather than HFA, and I use characteristics instead of symptoms, because a symptom is for somebody who has an illness, who has a malady, who's sick. But Asperger's cannot be treated. So there's no treatment for Asperger's, you know. There's no treatment for Asperger's. Asperger's cannot be treated, medicated away. Yes, if the Aspie, like myself, goes through depression, anxiety, yes, then medication, yes, or regular chills or colds, whatever the case may be, such as COVID. I got triple vaxxed, 3 vaccines, triple vaxxed. I got 3 of them. And I try to keep my best because I open carry my disinfectant in the backpack for the hand sanitation, because there's microbes, bacteria, and germs out there. And there you go for the public workers. Got some sewage waste. Good job. And across the North American Collective, the machines, the big machines and the big brains. It takes brains, it takes muscle, it takes the soft pillow, it takes some massages, some kisses, it takes some love and understanding. We cannot just base ourselves on strength. As much as I understand the policy, peace through strength, law and order, it gotta be complemented by second, third chances. For our brothers and sisters lost their liberty. As I rock and roll for my brothers and sisters in the uniform, as I'm calling for the uniforms of the Dragon Army and the DGA, the Dragon Army, the 3, the all red ones, for total aggressive defense. The white ones for service, and the total black ones, the police, kind of the white and the red. The white and the red. So those 3 new uniforms for the Dragon Army, what I'm calling to add to the 6th military force of the United States, the 7th, the Dragon Army, aka North American Integrated S.S.D Legion, Security Service and Defense Legion, Security Service and Defense Legion, the S.S.D, Security Service and Defense Legion, integrated with all police forces and the organizations, the security services of Police Forces of Canada, the Police Forces of Canada, the Canadian Police Contingencies, the Canadian Police Contingencies, the police contingencies, you know, the Canadian Police Services, RCMP and regular police. And I served not a long time in the past life in the RCMP, and a little bit in the SPVM here, but sometimes I was born a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a man, a woman. That's why you got that 50-50 now, man, woman, woman, man, you know. Democratic Republican, General Dragon Priestess of the Goddess. You got that double trouble, but, you know, I'm just financially stressed. Besides financial stress, I could use it as a massage therapy session, millionaires, and finance the firefighters, those public workers. They deserve it and earn it more than yours truly. They deserve it more than me. Public workers who pick up the garbage, the recycling, and today's that Thursday, so I gotta get picked up in my neighborhood, the compost. And I worked on the compost project. I worked in 2018 a few months, I believe 3.5 months, from like September to February. It's like 5 months almost, something like that, a few months. on the project. So I brought it in, part of the team who brought it in, the bins and the education, went door to door and did some education, some outreach. So I'm proud of that work, as I'm proud of my independent geopolitical theoretical analytical work. It could be a bit academic, a bit intellectual, sophisticated. Sometimes I try to adjust my explanations, because as a characteristics of Asperger's is sometimes we have a tendency to utilize too much academic, intellectual, sophisticated, verbose and overly stupendous type of linguistics and the way we discuss certain things, which can be simplified. It's just because our brains have these mutations, and that's how we gotta rock and roll with that, and I gotta live with it, and that's how we gotta live with that rock and roll 24/7, and that's how we gotta get on that geopolitics. I am an independent geopolitical theoretical honest theorist. Again, I predicted what's happening now, I predicted what's happening now, and part of that prediction was, of course, that on the horizon is coming a international conflagration. That's the mountain. You can see it far off. Yesterday we were there atop the Mount Royal, West Mount, which is part of the three-peak mountain system known as Mount Royal, and that's Montreal downtown there. Nice red. So we were there. That's miles and kilometers away. So yesterday in the video, if you check, nobody watches except my little videos. Gotta say, I made, I think, celebrating 1,000 views for one video. First time I got more than 1,000. My little rock and roll videos on the 1 minute ones. I think my attention span, But that's okay. I've been a YouTuber. I've been working for years and years and years, How my YouTube channel got better with this little work tool. I call it the work, W-O-R-K. The work tool here. And we got to get that contingency, and have been during COVID calling for the support of my dream, which is fundamentally a public-private partnership across the North American Collectif, across the 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories, across the 63, 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories, and that's the mountain. And that's the downtown core area, see? So the mountain can be seen afar off. That's the downtown core area right there. Beautiful skyscrapers. Come learn some French, take some culture, and that's the mountain where we were yesterday, of course. It can be seen afar off, even from hundreds of kilometers or many kilometers outside of the island, roundabout. It can be seen afar off. And yesterday we were there where that antenna is there, You see a little bit of that antenna. You can see it in my videos. But that's far though. So that's about, from here to that to the mountain is 20 kilometers about 20k kilometers though, not miles. So we can see it afar up. So back to Asperger's. Just to summarize, it's not a mental illness. It's a neurological mental divergent condition. It makes us Aspies just predisposed to these special type of weird, eccentric type of way that we communicate. Sometimes we might display clumsiness. Sometimes we might, of course, relate. We have difficulty maintaining friendships, employments, and parallel to the employment levels being 11 times higher than the majority of the population, the suicidal depression is also 9 times higher among the small, tiny minority of a community known as Aspies. So because we're this tiny, small community, tiny community of the population, then of course it requires that building of the bridges. So I lived as an Aspie. I lived being depressed and being suicidal, and that's what I lived, and that's what I live, and that's what I got to rock and roll. That's what I rock and roll with that, and that's what I got to get going. So because I lived it, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on the go with that. So because I lived it, I understand it. It was really painful. But crossing Canada coast to coast in 2017, that's what made me come out of being depressed and being suicidal, because I said to myself, I had a revelation. When I reached Banff, Alberta, the mountain, the Rockies, which go also in the United States, it's Canada joined the United States, as my dream is for the fusion thereof, for the 63, for the 63, for the 63. Reaching Banff, the Rockies, I just had a revelation. I said, wow, just a big revelation. Big revelation. I had an awakening. I said so many things to see, to do. So many things to see, to do across the collective, across North America, that I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. Beautiful roses. A strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, and who I consider family, the beggars Canadians and North Americans, my family here, and all who will to join me, pledge your allegiance, legions. All who will to join me, pledge your allegiance, legions. All who will to join me, pledge your allegiance, legions. Please, I don't want to waste nobody's time. Pledge your allegiance, legions to our families, the song, and friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only. And rock and roll song is so sunrise to sunset, midnight, 3 a.m. is may I be avenged 11-fold. I don't owe nobody nothing I told. Zero. Except for my friend and the workers who built the North American Collective, the construction workers, the farmers, the butchers, the electricians, those who make me share a little bit of a privilege of this civilization, which was built from blood and sweat and tears of others in the 20th century, to have this possible in the 21st. The work, of which are the fruits of the work which we have, and so I gotta salute that. It takes a little bit of old school with a new school. It takes a little bit of old school with a new school. It takes a little bit of a OLD, old school, with the new school, eh? So that's how we got to do, and that's how we got to get that doing, the generational things, and that's how we gotta get doing on the rock and roll, and that's how we gotta get doing on the now, man. So that's just how we gotta get doing with the world where we live, and we gotta be grateful. Gratitude is great for mental health, and crossing Canada made me change my whole life, and that's why I have written documents, many documents, initiatives, which are mostly public-private partnership based, principally public-private partnership based, and I'm gonna cross there, it's safer. Mostly public-private partnership based, and that's what it is, and public-private partnership based. Of course, one of them is the North American Collective Initiative for the Public-Private Partnership Project, in order to mass finance citizens tourism for general wellness. In other words, financing tourism by public-private partnerships for the well-being and the wellness, and to establish a strong esprit de corps, because you got to see what we're fighting for, to the armed forces. I've been saying for years during COVID, you got to maybe go change some diapers in the daycares, change some diapers in the daycares. And maybe go change some diapers in the daycares, as a new protocol for security once in a while, or before you put on a uniform, or every month, see who you're defending, because the children, the youth are innocent, So I hope to publish my children's books one day, and didn't have the $500 to publish them, but hey, that's what it is with the rock and roll with that. And that's how we gotta get drilling, and there's the mountain there, and that's how we hay, and that's how we do, and that's how we gotta get on that rock and roll, man. Here we are, to get it for the left, for the right, and in the middle, in the center, for the sentries, for the butchers, the bakers, and the nurses, the doctors, and the firefighters, the XYZ, for those electricians, the plumbers, truckers on the road, and gotta not forget those in the fast food, flipping some good burgers, hamburgers, cheeseburgers. I gotta be saluting them a little bit, thanking them, and be mindful about their work and all the work that was done in the past here as I do my work, and gonna discuss geopolitics now in relation a bit to what's happening in the United States, my brothers and sisters. And I was born 3 times in the United States, post 70, 76, once as a woman, twice as a man. Served in the same United States Army, 156 years apart. Most important thing for the Marines and the National Guard deployed, sportsmanship, application of sportsmanship-like conduct with our brothers and sisters civilians. That's also for the Dragon Army, as we're going to move towards creating the 7th United States Army joined with the Canadian Army. And we're going to integrate all the existing powers, existing security services, and existing security services which we have, and that's what we're going to get doing with that, and that's what we're going to get building with the love, and that's what we're going to get down that harmony to build that, and that's what we're going to get doing now. You know, it starts with me today, and that's what we got to get doing, man. And we got to get it on the left and on the right and in the middle sometimes. That's what we got to get doing, you know. For the love, also understanding. We cannot just base ourselves on just total, just peace to strength. I understand it. I support it 50-50, 50%. Because we have to have other things such as love and understanding and love by which we direct ourselves, you know, by which we direct our conduct. And we will for the 63. As we're gonna move towards a new world order and create a Dragon Army, United States joint for the 63, 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories. We gotta build that golden dome, but put a hawk in it. I have been advocating for years about it because I'm a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. I know the realities of the threats we're faced with and the fact that the ICBM rockets, the intercontinental ballistic missiles can reach us deep, and you know, we're vulnerable to those ICBM rockets from the east and from the west, because the IRs can travel 10,500 kilometers, you know, 10,500 kilometers. That's how they can travel, you know, 10,500 kilometers. They can travel with that, and that's what we gotta get doing with the love things, and that's what we gotta get doing now, you know, for the 63 as we move for the firefighters, the butchers, and the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, and the nurses, the doctors, and all the information we have. We need to know additional information, but my main concern, of course, now is that there's outside interference, because we made powerful enemies by our military involvement and the support of antagonistically related political entities with each other. And unfortunately, some political entities are powerful, and have the means to employ and utilize criminal underworld organizations. So they have the means to utilize criminal underworld organizations. That's my concern, and these criminal underworld organizations might take advantage to want to harm our collective North American civilizational complex, Canada, United States. Because my brothers and sisters, Uncle Carney, I'm gonna ask, you know, and make this statement, and this political statement is, it's a yes. There's no no and no maybe. There's no maybe and no no. There's no maybe and no no. There's no maybe and no. There's yes. So us, Quebecers, Canadians, Quebecers, and vice versa, reciprocal for my fellow brothers and sisters in the United States, our main interest when it comes to foreign affairs, I'm not discussing domestic internal affairs, but foreign affairs, our main interest, primary, first and foremost interest, is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other, to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. That is just number one. To have the best, most cordial economic, financial, cultural, diplomatic, defense, security, service relations with each other. That's just what it is. There's no and no maybe to that statement. That has been a constant in the 20th century, and that will be a constant in the 21st century. That is just how it is geopolitically. Just like the symbol pi, the pi symbol. In mathematics is relation to the circle and the ratio. The ratio, diameter and the circle. The diameter and the circumference related to the circle, right? So the pi symbol is always 3.1416, 3.1415, 3.1415, 3.1415, 3.1415, and that's the relation with the circle and the diameter. And that's what it is. So that's what we gotta get doing. So basically this constant is always the same. So it is geopolitically. Geopolitically. So geopolitically, that is just what it is. There's no maybe. There's no no. There's no maybe. There's no no. There's no maybe and no no. There's yes. The pi symbol representative thereof for the mathematical relations between the circle and the circumference, and that's what it is with that. The circumference and the circle. So basically, of course, and fundamentally our main interest is to have the best relations with each other. And this is also for the US, to have the best, most cordial relations with us. The 44 million and all who will come to join us, and all who are born today, you know, because I guess across the collective, gonna have to sing a cadence for the children of the collective in the kingdom born every day. And, you know, gotta salute those daycare workers changing some diapers, you know. So our main geopolitical interest, there's no no, there's no maybe. It's always yes. It is to have the most important relations fundamentally with each other. That's what it is. The most important relations with each other. That's what it is. Fundamentally, in essence, the most important relations with each other. It is, of course, to have the best, most important relations with each other. The most important relations that we can. And all who come to be with, to live with us here, no? To live with us here, you know? That's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta do, man. So that's what we gotta do with the rock and roll, and so we gotta do now. I'm gonna see somebody cleaning the big car. We need about 300 Dragon Army trucks like that, and I gotta turn my head, you know. That's what we gotta get doing, and that's how we gotta get rock and roll, you know, for the love, man, and got some lovers, and hopefully somebody making love, black, white, and rainbow, you know. If you're a man, a woman, you know, can I be 18 to come love with me, you know. So we gotta get doing, man, because I see people holding some hands and doing a little bit of that, and that's what we gotta get doing, man. And I love seeing a little bit of that couples with that, and that's what we gotta get doing for that. He said I'm gonna press the button here, you know. That's what we gotta get doing. Basically, of course, our fundamental interest is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. Still take a look at these beauties. I wonder what they are, you know. I wonder what they are, you know. They have a name, but I'm not really sure. Whatever they are, that's what it is, and that's what we're gonna get doing, you know. I like how that is kind of colorful there. It makes me think of a little bit of ice cream, you know. Of a little bit of ice cream, you know. Some ice cream which kind of you eat or not. It's kind of colorful, but actually that's a statement which I kind of agree, you know. Don't harass. If somebody tells you stop, you're harassing me, then stop your harassing. Just stop your harassing, and you know, aspects can be abused. And sometimes we have racism, you know. Racism sometimes is subconscious. We might be triggered in special ways, or we might have experiences with something, of course, which is not pleasant in relation to perhaps people like myself, or part of this tiny minority of a community aspects, which a lot of people think we don't have compassion or empathy. It's not that. It's just that we show it by action. We show it by action, you know. So that's why we gotta show it by action with that. And that's how we go. Oh, je pense que j'ai de quoi, mais j'ai pas beaucoup, là. Mais je suis en crise financière, là. Mais... C'est rough, moi aussi, oui. Prends soin, puis s'il te plaît, pas de violence. that's what it is with that, and that's what we got, you know. There's gotta be a little bit of French Canadian there. I can help out a bit, and he said a little bit of stuff, and I said his stuff for me too, and not a lot of money which we can go, and that's all we got, you know. And so we gotta get doing with the drill, you know. That's what we gotta do it. So we got. That's what it is, you know. So that's what we got, man, and that's what we gotta get doing with the love. And hold on, I never seen that bus before. Wait a minute. That's the type of bus. Oh, it's the XL. Oh, because it's a strike. So the problem is we're having a strike with that, you know. That's what it is, man. So here we got that crane fetish, you know. Gotta get that crane fetish with that, and that's what it is. A beautiful crane, isn't it? I'm just salivating, just looking at it. Go crane conductors. Gotta give you free hugs, free hugs, free hugs, you know. I gotta give those train conductors a little bit of that free hugs with that, and that's what we got, and that's why we rock and roll with the love. And see, construction workers, man. I will to build a 4, you know. I always be thinking about the construction workers on the go, and that's how we got, you know. That's how we rock and roll, man. That's how we gotta get drilling, man, you know. Rock and roll 24/7. So we oh man, I was just thinking about, you know, how strange. And I was thinking, you know, because sometimes they're subconscious. We have racism, sometimes subconscious, and you know, if I can, that's what I put on the table to all brothers and sisters across the 63, black, white, and rainbow. Some hugs and kisses, you know, hugs and kisses for black, white, rainbow, and that's the only way I know how to do some justice. Bread and money I don't have, you know. Money I'm lacking, but that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, you know. That's what it is with the goal, man, and so you gotta get that rock and roll, you know, because it's something which I might be perceived an Aspie because of an interaction with a fellow Aspie might be perceived in such a way as saying, well, you know, Aspies are like this. But no, I'm also an individual Aspies. We have certain common characteristics, and they're characteristics, not symptoms, such as repetition of words, you know, repetition of words with that. You know, repetition of words, and that's what it is, you know, with that. So we might have echolalia, and that's what it is, and So it is with that. And so you gotta get doing with that. Repetition of words and sentences and being overly intense, super concentrated, and super in when we're involved in our special interests. See, for example, also be concerned about certain details. I really want to know how come there's the number 44 and 018 there. 44, then 018. 44, and then see on the bus. So that might be some classification. Because on the other bus I saw it was 40 and then another number. So on this one it's 44 and then 018. And both have the same type of number. See, they have 2 digits. So you see a pattern, 2 digits, a line, and then 3 digits. See, they're all 2 lines or 3 digits. Gotta be careful here. So I think some transit has picked up because before it was on strike here. We have a strike in Quebec. And we speak French. We just love our French.
Ouais, en français, oui.
Wow, moi aussi, ben oui. C'est juste que maintenant, je fais le vlog en anglais, mais je suis québécois, là.
Okay.
Je suis québécois, ouais. C'est juste que je parle les deux, moi, ça me dérange pas. Puis même que je fais un effort, si des gens, tu sais, qui viennent, je suis toujours prêt à leur donner des cours gratuits, là, pour le français, il n'y a pas de problème.
Ouais, c'est bon.
Ben, ça prend l'individu.
Ah, ça prend, ouais, c'est sûr, ben ouais.
C'est ça que je dis aux gens, on parlait l'autre jour, mais parce que si moi je le fais pas vis-à-vis les gens, parce qu'on sait jamais, c'est difficile peut-être pour eux autres d'apprendre aussi, là. Il faut qu'on comprenne que des fois c'est pas facile. Fait que moi, quand quelqu'un fait un effort, je dis bravo, merci d'avoir fait un effort, puis
c'est vrai.
continuez de même.
Ouais. Ben, c'est comme moi, je suis français. Ben, français, comme on a beaucoup d'immigrants nous travaillent.
Ouais.
J'apprends un peu l'anglais, essayer de communiquer avec eux. C'est sûr, je fais pas de grosses phrases, mais au moins on essaie de communiquer, puis puis j'essaie de...
Ouais. Tant que tu le fais, t'essayes.
J'essaie, puis...
Tu fais un effort.
Moi, je fais un effort, puis...
Il faut faire un effort dans certaines choses. En plus, moi, j'ai l'Asperger's, fait que c'est plus difficile, tu sais. Tu sais, c'est quoi l'Asperger's?
Non, ben, je l'ai déjà entendu, mais...
Ouais.
C'est l'Asperger's.
Chez nous, les Asperger's, on a des mutations dans le cerveau. Fait que des fois, on peut dire des choses trop directes, tu sais.
Okay.
On va communiquer d'une manière, ça peut offenser les gens, ou on va s'approcher trop proche.
Ah, tu comprends.
C'est juste que les choses de la société, il faut nous le dire directement. Tu sais, mettons, là, je m'approche de toi, tu te dis, prends une distance, s'il te plaît, tu sais. C'est juste ces choses-là. C'est pas si connu, c'est rare.
Ok, c'est rare, ok.
Ouais, c'est pour ça qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup de monde qui savent c'est quoi, là. Comme toi, tu le sais pas, il n'y a pas bien des gens qui savent. Parce que c'est rare.
C'est rare, ok.
Fait que nous, notre cerveau, il y a des mutations.
Okay.
Fait qu'au niveau microscopique, génétique, là, fait qu'à cause de ces mutations, on voit le monde différemment.
Okay.
C'est tout. Il n'y a pas de danger, c'est pas violent, mais on peut être intense parce qu'on est toujours, on a des intérêts spéciaux. Fait que ces intérêts, ça nous préoccupe tout le jour, toute la journée, 24 sur 24. Fait que moi, si tu viens me parler de la géopolitique, j'arrête pas.
OK.
C'est ça. Vous faites quoi dans la vie?
Moi, je suis trieur au buanderie à N.A.C.W.P.
OK.
Ouais, c'est une compagnie de linge, de vêtements, d'uniformes. En gros, c'est une buanderie.
OK.
Ouais,
Fait que vous faites du lavage, là?
Ouais, lavage, ouais.
OK.
Ouais, je m'en vais prendre l'autobus.
Hey, ça m'a fait plaisir, là, la prochaine fois. Ciao. Toi aussi. That's it, and he's a nice French, and we speak our French, and we gotta love it a little bit with that French, and that's what it is, and that's what we gotta get going, man, you know? Make a little bit of effort from that French, and make a little bit of that effort for that French, and that's it. That's how we put it up for the French language, and he makes an effort for English, so I make an effort for English, and he makes an effort for English, and vice versa. It's reciprocal, you know? It's reciprocal. And told me a little bit about the employment, and he's doing some work, and he's doing that, and because he smiled, he said something in French, and I said I'm doing the vlog, a marching vlog, and that's how we're doing, and I told him about Asperger's, that I have it, and if certain things, you know, we gotta be told, or how we are, just to let him know, and he didn't know what it was, and not a lot of people know what Asperger's is. It's again, this neurological mental divergent condition, and it's 24/7. We can be intense. If an N.A.C.W.P has a special interest, cars, an N.A.C.W.P might know just by looking at the car so many things about the car: the year of the fabrication, the total weight, the speed it could go by, how much miles it can go per, or kilometers per gallon of gas, how much consumption vice versa per 100 kilometers or 100 miles of gas. It could do that calculation, mathematically convert it from miles to kilometers easy, and can do maybe some math very good, percentages, or myself, I'm good at percentages mostly. I love mathematics in terms of percentages, and in terms of percentages, so percentages, fractions, and mostly percentages I really love converting and doing, especially now with the price of increasing the cost of living. And that's why I'm calling on the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB on the 4 to donate for the Dancing Goddess Army, that DGA. And I'm gonna be upset a bit because the top 50 athletes according to Forbes, the top 50 athletes per the Ford are all men. And that's it. So that's what we got, you know. And that's what I live with 24/7. Asperger's, and it's 24/7, you know. Geopolitics. Oh, this is a new one here they built. I wonder if it's functional already. Let's see. Is it functional? Maybe. Yeah, it's already functioning, so I'm gonna take advantage and wait 10 seconds. Wait 10 seconds. Usually because there's residue, you know. So usually I count 10-20 seconds because of a residue. Usually 20, because there could be a rust, you know. Rust on the pipes, so just count to 10-20, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, you know. You never know, some rust, and get it on the go, man. And that's what we got, man. My fellow cousins there all come to join us. Anyways, so that's just how it is with the water and pollination. And oh, there was some youth running. Long live the youth! Long live the youth! Long live the youth! Gotta be a daily cadence. So the Dragon Army, you know. Aspie's high unemployment, way too high, 11 times bigger than the proportion. High unemployment, and the other one is not just high unemployment, it is of course high unemployment. Suicidal rates, suicidal tendencies, ideation, and depression. So I've been there, I was there, and problem is I have problem remembering my life prior to. So it might be that this July 1st, I moved. It's been maybe 10 years, or 9 for sure, maybe even 10. So either I moved there 2016 or 2015 in July. Problem is I have trouble remembering. When I go back 7, 8, 9 years is okay, then 10 gets blurred, and after 11, you know, after 2014, I just have these blackouts, you know, memory, and I don't know if I was drinking, I was an alcoholic or junkie maybe. I am not, don't do drugs for very rarely. I bought legal cannabis, and I haven't done legal cannabis very rarely. I bought now to have it for the legal cannabis for whatever the case may be, and whatever the case may be with that, and whatever the rock and roll is, and that's what we gotta get doing, man. So whatever the contingency is, whatever, it's retrograde amnesia. RA, retrograde amnesia. So memory loss, you know, just memory loss. Like a blackout, and I just have trouble accessing my memory prior to that. To about 10, 11 years, that's the problem. I know I graduated high school decades ago and some information like that, but besides that, you know, it's kind of a mystery. I got flashes of trauma. I was attacked by surprise and hit my head on the concrete. Got a right arm, right shoulder was dislocated. Had to go to the I went to the Jewish General Hospital. It was cracked back together, you know, it was cracked back together, and because it was cracked back, placed back together, you know. I was put on some meds for pain, so I was like kind of in a coma, partial coma for a few days. I don't know exactly how long exactly, but I survived that. I was bloodied up and bruised up, bloodied up, and head on the concrete, and dislocated right arm. Shoulder was cracked back. The Jewish General. I gotta go retrieve. I was planning next week to go and retrieve because I'm gonna do a big cleaning before July 1st. So, of course, it was cracked back and put back and with meds. And I guess I had my own Cillian Pirate episode. Just me and Donald Trump. I guess we got something in common. And they both tried to take us out. Somebody tried to take us out, but I'm no supporter of Granddaddy Trump. I would have voted for Kamala Biden, but I'm a centrist. My centrism is North American centric and tied hand in hand with my Holy Trinity activities and the Democratic Republic, the Democratic Republic. That's what I got, you know, and I gotta keep drilling with that, and so we gotta get consequential about it, and we gotta get together, and we gotta implement my DRT, which I'm gonna discuss soon. But first, just to say, you know, that sometimes memory loss is caused either by trauma. I used to live in a small prison cell, like it's a lot of white, blackish, reddish, yellowish type of greenish mold, lots of mold, MOLD. And so I guess I served my time. And I guess I got back, you know, and here I am, June 12th, you know. June 12th, and that's what it is, and that's what it is with that. And so uncle there on the bike, making a big smile to me, smile back, and you know, I'm pretty joyous now. I guess I've been through so much and lived with plenty of scars and been suicidal, and and I guess when I do survive COVID, you know, because I survived, I'm gonna go see what that is, you know. What is that? I see blurred a bit. I was prescribed some glasses, but cost, and some partial government finance. So I see it's not with the tree. It's separate from the tree. I was thinking, I was like, whoa, is that a hybrid? I guess maybe I'm a hybrid. How would I know if I'm a cyborg, anyways? How would I know if I'm a cyborg, eh? I wouldn't really know unless I was a part biological, artificially inseminated, created genetically, and cybernetics, and maybe that's why I don't remember. Like I said, I have flashes of trauma, and I remember my life kind of begins, you know, when the arrival, paradoxically, on the geopolitical scene with the Islamic State terrorism, and I did some work in consequence in regards to the Islamic State, because there was some propaganda here, and there were terrorist concerns, as I did some work with the national security in concerns to national security matters, and yes, I don't know why the number 44 is there on the bus. See, again, the same pattern, 44, again. And that's how I gotta get doing 44, and that's how I gotta rock and roll it. So the Islamic State in 2014, so that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on this pattern numbers here, 6.466.140. See, that's an ASPI thing. We focus on special numbers, pattern 6.466.1.14, and that's what we gotta get doing with that. So we gotta get on that rock and roll with that, and that's what we gotta get doing, man. So that's basically on geopolitical when my what I remember most is the Islamic State. Also known, I don't use ISIS. I don't use ISIS. And ISIS, of course, is for somebody else, and that's what it is, man. And I get a little bit of that sense here. So ISIS, of course, is the Islamic State terrorism, and that's what we got, and that's what we're gonna get rock and rolling with that. And that's what we're gonna get on that trail side of things, and that's how we're gonna go get it now, and so we gotta get drilling, man. So we gotta get drilling, man. That's why I gotta get drilling. But anyways, Islamic State terrorism. Islamic State terrorism, Islamic State. I use IS, or the Islamic State terrorist group, but unless in the news it was mostly used ISIS. But ISIS for me, since I was a priestess of ISIS in many past lives incarnations, and I'm still a woman in me today, there's still a woman in me today, there's still a woman today, but from ancient Egypt, horse it. Behold the mysteries of the two faces. 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 By the way, I wouldn't know if I'm a cyborg anyways, right? I wouldn't know, maybe. Whatever the case may be, my memory is blacked out before 2014, and I have these flashes of, it's kind of badass. It's kind of like I was in Syria between 2014 and, I want to say 2014 and 2016, between 2014 and 2016. Some were like dreams of being there, because all those people were all dressed in all black, and all the violence between 2014 and 2016 with the Islamic State, but it's like dreams, dreams and blackouts. So from 2014 and 2015, summer 2014 and summer 2016, so it's very odd. Anyways, I have these scars on my body, and I live with these scars, this trauma, and the joy of the rebirth several times, 2017, crossing Canada, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and crossing Canada, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and that's how we got 2017. And then I got this new one here after I survived COVID in February 2020. February 2020. 2020. I gotta give a shout out to the workers across the Collectif, Canada, United States, Quebec joint, who built all these for the electrification. I gotta meditate. Always see, now I put this in the context of geopolitics, because we're all vulnerable. We're vulnerable for the electricity. That's what it is with that, and that's how we got that electricity, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get doing on the go, man, all the electrification here where we got, and so we gotta get doing for my fellow cousins there, cousins, family, and French Canadian here, myself, Quebec Canadian, French Canadian, and getting a little bit of that fitness always brings me some joy to see them. And I love to matchmake, and if you're black, white, black, man, woman, I'm androgynous, pansexual, and you gotta be 18 plus though. Hey, we're not playing around. We're gonna card you just like when you go buy some SQDC, buy some, of course, SQDCs, when you buy some of that legal cannabis or alcohol or cigarettes, and that's how we gotta get doing with that. And here we are in the sun, joyous, lust. I get lustful, but I'm not really looking for romantic involvement. If I marry somebody, it's gonna be only a person I already proposed. I guess it's gonna have to be an open marriage, open marriage. Cuckold, maybe, cuckold, C-U-C-K. Whatever the case may be, that's what I said. And just to finalize my memory, maybe because I don't know, usually it's related to a prolonged illness. Concussion, it can be by concussion, by head trauma, or blunt trauma, head trauma. Trauma to the brain, trauma to the head, H-E-A-D, to the head. Or it can also be by drugs or prolonged illness, even alcoholism. People who are alcoholics sometimes lose their memory, but of course the loss of memory affects personal memories, but not necessarily linguistic capabilities, linguistic skills for language or skill for mathematics and the other information, because it's stored in different places. So that's a little bit of how retrograde amnesia works. We might come back with sometimes hypnosis or paradoxically by another trauma. Trauma can cause it, and by trauma you can gain it. So whatever the case may be, and I did some work, and my theories are for the North American Collective, S.S.D, Security Service and Defense, and for CSIS, I did some work with CSIS. Had some citizen do for the Collective North American Civilisation back in 2016 in relation to, of course, the Islamic State. I found some propaganda and material in the newspaper, and of course it was kind of closed down and for a few weeks because there was some overt propaganda in a freely distributed newspaper in Montreal, and I guess they took my report seriously and they thanked me and they had a little bit of a notice, whatever the case may be. But I was really a call basically to join the Islamic State right here in Montreal I think it was in 2016. It's about 2016. So my memory goes black out after like 2014, So basically I remember 8, 9 years, 10 goes blurred a bit, and 11 plus it's like blackout, Whatever the case may be, all the work that I've done, especially since I got out of my depression in 2017, and since I got out of my depression in 2017, that's what it is with that. And that's what we got to get that consequentially for where we are now, Because today is all that matters today, and we gotta have some justice, Sometimes we gotta get a little bit of justice with that, and that's how we have to be, and that's how we have to do, and that's how we have to get on that levels of these beautiful flowers here, Consequently, yes, I know I'm not perfect, I'm lustful, I'm a mess. I was more of a mess before, less now, less and less. I guess New World Order, New World Dragon Order, Rainbow Dragon, black and white men and women, you want to come and love you with me? Well, gotta be 18 plus, Dragon versus Trump, let's build the fort, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum on the Canadian-US border to be 11 times bigger than the Harbor Ball. Where the Harbor Ball, aka Blackout Ball, aka Bro Bowl, that is a nickname for the Super Bowl. One of my top 5 Super Bowls is known as the Bro Bowl, aka Harbor Ball, aka Blackout Ball, where my 49ers lost. Where my 49ers lost. And I watched my Niners for decades, even the 80s games, 80s Super Bowls. I still watch them regularly every year. I watched Super Bowls where my 49ers, we're nation, we're empire, not nation, we're empire, not nation, we're empire, not nation. Just as we are, the Dragon Kingdom Empire for the Imperium of the 63. My auntie there, wearing some of that red. My family here, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, pledge your allegiance, friends with benefits only, and that's why we gotta get drilling and implement my Trinity of theories, and the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, the DRT, Debt Refusion Theory, and the DFT, Debt Refusion Theory, and that's how we gotta get on that love, man. Work. Arbeit. Travay. Trabajo. Problem with Aspis is that there are a lot of misunderstandings concerning what Asperger's is really. Again, there's inconclusive to the origins, the causes of Asperger's are inconclusive. Partly hereditary, partly biological. Partly hereditary, partly biological. Hereditary, partly environmental. So it's just mutation of the brains at the micro level, and that accounts for these characteristics which can seem weird, strange, and weird, awkward, strange, and weird, and just how we are, and that's just how we are and how we function on a daily life to be here, that's just how we are, and gotta break a little bit of X, a little bit of white, the black, and in the middle of that rock and roll. See, wow, beautiful yellow. I just love, this is nice how it's done here. I love yellow. I love yellow flowers. I just Love, yellow flowers. They're so gorgeous. Super nice. Super beautiful. Just Love, just so refreshing. Thanks for putting them there too. I guess it's on private, but it's a little bit of the public, you know. So that's what we got, man, and that's what we gotta rock and roll with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on the go, and so we gotta get trilling, you know. And here we're gonna go on Crawford, and we have to discuss my DRT theory, the DRT, soon, and again just to finalize and call for sportsmanship and call for building the 4 on the North American Canadian-US borders. We're gonna fuse, gonna build the greatest, biggest ever sports arena ever built to have events for sports in perpetuity, 24/7 sports. And me and Donald Trump are gonna have the inauguration match where me and Donald Trump are gonna fight on the Canadian-US border. I'm gonna fight Donald Trump, and I've been challenging since 2018. And initially, I called for the building of the rink, build the rink, and build the rink Coliseum, and I want to will to build the Forgotten Goddess Temple, the Forgotten Goddess Temple, the Forgotten Goddess Temple, Forgotten Goddess, GODDSS, Forgotten Goddess Temple, the Forgotten Goddess Temple, the Forgotten Goddess Temple, Goddess, GODDSS, the Forgotten Goddess Temple, Goddess. I credit my surviving COVID, me. We gotta have some goddess of justice as well. Second chances to my brothers and sisters who also lost their liberty. That's why we gotta implement the North American Imperial, North American. That's why we gotta apply, of course, the North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act to build the 44. That's a beauty. To build the 44, Look at that. Gorgeous. So nice. To build the 44. To build the 44 tunnels across the 63 across the North American Collectif in order to, of course, continue the civilizational complex in case of a thermonuclear war. Tulsi Gabbard, just discussed. Gonna have to revise the video, watch again. Tulsi Gabbard, and I'm not a Republican, not a Democrat. I'm a Democratic Republican. Republican Democrat, 50-50. Centrism. My centrism is tied hand in hand with my Trinity of theories, you know, and that's what we gotta get doing there. It's a beautiful day like this. They're gonna discuss the building of the 444 for the Forgotten Goddess Temple, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum, Canada-United States border to build it, and the free inauguration event is going to be me versus Donald Trump. I'm going to have sports in perpetuities, and also to build the Rainbow People's Palace, you know, for my fellow divergent community and fellow LGBTQ community, and to build the House of the Dragon, pyramid, you know, pyramid, scarlet red, scarlet crimson. Both crimson and scarlet are scarlet and crimson and scarlet are shades of red. Shades of red. So that's what we gotta get doing. That's what we gotta work, man. Well, they're doing some hard work, man. So what that means is Bordeaux d'asphalt. What they're doing is, of course, some of the asphalt. That's the translation. Translation. That's how we gotta get doing, man. No. No. Exactly. Oh, this is nice. This is nice. This is nice. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Et voila. That's it. Now we're gonna discuss the DRT. Super important I discuss the DRT now, ASAP. So let's build a fort. Let's build a fort for the North American people's Imperial Coliseum, the Forgotten Goddess Temple, Forgotten Goddess Temple, House of the Dragon, and the Rainbow People's Palace. Me and Donald Trump are gonna fight on the Canadian-U.S. border, pledge your allegiance, Dollar family, and that's what we're gonna get doing. And that's what we need to be building, man, ASAP, you know. It's like going to sun, and so we're gonna get drilling on that, and we're gonna get on that love, man, you know. Here we are, you know, to get on the do it side of things, you know. So the DRT, you know, the DRT, debt refusion theory. DRT, debt refusion theory is, of course, the solution, because now we are similar for Canada. The situations, economic, financial, commercial situation for both Canada and the United States is in a very similar situation. So the situation is very similar, Canada and United States, right? Very similar, very similar. Of course, we are in a precarious situation. Economically, vulnerabilities for the majority of the population. Not all, myself, yeah. $10,000 in debt and $10,000 in debt, but when we grow, and of course, $10,000 in debt. That's what it is, and that's what we're gonna get doing with that, you know, $10,000 in debt. I am $10,000 in debt, but many of the people, citizens of Canada and the United States, citizens in the United States, that's what we got. So citizens of the United States and Canada, we're in a very precarious financial situation. Extremely so. Because the cost of living keeps increasing still. Just I made last Friday, I made the analysis, how it affects me personally. Of course, I used to buy chocolate bars which were 50 cents each at the dollar store, Dollarama it's called here. And of course, it went from 50 cents to 63 cents. So if you calculate 63 minus 50, that's 13 cents. But that increase equivalence is 26%. So I had to reduce. I had to buy less. So I reduced from, oh, those are nice. Wow. All those, they smell good too. They smell good. So of course, 26% can be a lot, because not a lot of salaries increased by 26%. 26%, not a lot of salaries. That's why we have more and more strikes, because the cost of living keeps increasing. And the credit cards are maxed out. We're in parallel record-breaking credit cards. In parallel, since February 2020, when COVID began and I had it, it was like death, pestilence, and disease. It was like death, pestilence, and disease. COVID for me was like death, pestilence, and disease. I survived COVID. I survived COVID, you know. So what this says is abolish the police and prisons. No, institute the Dragon Army for S.S.D, security service and defense. So not to this, but incorporate all the police, integrate all the police, all the security service into the Dragon Army for S.S.D, for the 63, for S.S.D, for the 63, for S.S.D, for the 63. For S.S.D, for the 63, that's the solution. The North American Collective Centrism, public-private partnership solution as I go now here to the river. So that's how we got, you know, so. And of course, that's how we got to rock and roll, man. And of course, the precarious financial situation is very stressful. Very stressful. Our people are a lot of pressure financially. That's why we gotta focus with solution, and the solution is the DRT. Paradoxically, me, all the sufferings, all the struggles, the trauma, the surviving COVID, being here and getting go, and I propose and I have the solution on the table. Is the only solution. Well, something that has to resemble my solution has to be the solution. In theory, in protocol, has to resemble my solution, and that's what it is. That's what I gotta go rock and roll with that. So my solution is the DRT. The DRT, the debt refusion theory. And it's the solution because the record-breaking credit card debt we have reached, there's a record-breaking credit card debt. So the amount of debt paid on the credit cards is really hardcore. So that is the problem, fundamental problem, while we are in such a precarious financial situation, why we are finding ourselves in this financially precarious situation, the majority. The COVID increasing, also parallel, not just the private increase in Canada and United States citizens having record-breaking credit card debt, record-breaking. Just last week, 2 weeks ago, last month, this year, last year also, so we got record-breaking credit card debt. See, this is the big river which surrounds Hawk Island, Montreal. So due to this immense debt which we have accumulated, due to the programs which had to be initialized and integrated and applied during the COVID times, and now there's a resurgence of COVID in India, China, it might hit us here again, a mutation, you never know if it was a bioweapon, maybe. I believe it was snakes which transmitted COVID to human beings, but I don't know for sure, you know. But that's just how I know. I don't know for sure. That's why I cannot rule out another possibility. I don't know for sure. So I cannot rule out another possibility about COVID. I just believe it was snakes to human beings, but I don't know if I cannot rule out another possibility. Another possibility such as being a bioweapon. So that I don't know. But I know that today we need to start implementing the DRT, debt refusion theory, or something very similar, because we are in a very financially precarious situation, myself included. I'm financially stressed, and of course the DRT is the solution, or something which resembles my DRT theory. In essence, fundamental essence, it has to resemble my DRT theory, and in my debt refusion theory is also integrated monetary integration theory. What is monetary integration theory? Monetary integration theory is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. So in my DRT is integrated MIT, not Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but monetary integration theory, which was the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. In the European Union. So the Germans, the Italians, the French, and many other countries, they destroyed the national central banks. Many countries in Europe have a common multinational central bank, the ECB. They no longer have the common national central bank. So my debt refusion theory also integrates monetary integration theory. So that's to keep in mind. So I'm going to explain it now as simple as I can. And again, I'm going to ask my uncle, what are we going to cut? What are we going to reduce? Because the same mathematical financial principle applies for an individual who's increasing credit card debt. Consequently, while the salary does not include in a similar manner to keep up with the spending and the increasing cost of borrowing, aka the interest we paid, then the individual has to cut and reduce. Maybe stop smoking, maybe stop the Netflix, stop going out to the movies, reduce the internet connection, reduce and stop whatever the case may be, and other things which consequently needs to be applied, you know. Consequently need to be applied. That's just how we be and how we are, you know. So that is just how we are and how we be with that and how we deal with that, and that's how we're gonna rock and roll here. We're gonna go by the river. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, whoa, thought it was gonna come at me. I love those waves, so I'm gonna go there. So the DRT theory has to be implemented. The debt refusion theory the debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE. So we're gonna go all over the waves. If I can go there. Wow. In French they're called vagues, waves. That's the French word, waves, vague, waves, vague. So see, you learn some French, you know. Learn some French, and my brother citizen there doing some guitar, and he's doing some of that guitar, and safely, freely to do so. Don't want to disturb, because if he's an N.A.C.W.P and he has a special interest in guitar, he might become a master of it. Just like I am the master of geopolitics, and I have predicted what's happening now again. Back in 2019, I predicted this international conflagration. Look at those yellows right there by the beautiful yellow flowers. Eh? You see there, consequently you can see the mountain, and this is the river that surrounds it, and you got some birds, you got some beautiful rivers, and it's one big river which surrounds Montreal, Huck Island, and here we are on the island, you know, Metropolis Island, 2.5 million people. It's like a small country, and here I am a bit in the wilderness, parallel to the big city and the big concrete jungle and the downtown and around about it. And Montreal is a big metropolis island, and we got the North Shore and the South Shore, and we got the 63, which is a top city, Montreal, in North America, one of the top 10 most populated. Mexico's first, so even if we include Mexico, Montreal is still among the top 10. I think it's 7th or 8th most populated. It stands about 2.5 million people. So back to the DRT, debt refusion theory. My theory has to be implemented in Canada, United States joint, because both Canada and the United States were in a similar financial position, similar, precarious, dangerous for a collapse tomorrow financial situation. The credit cards are maxed out, public debt, so we need to implement the DRT. Look at these beauties right here. Isn't that just gorgeous? Just in nature. That's why when you come here, don't pollute. Be mindful, you know, don't pollute, and be mindful that they're beautiful flora and fauna which must be preserved. And these one here also. See, you got a little bit of those with other flowers there, and you can come explore the big city and the cuisine and the culture, and also you can explore the flora and the fauna and come by the river or by the mountain and round about it. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, the debt refusion theory integrates monetary integration theory, like I said a priori. So we have to implement either my DRT theory with some of the details, because I discuss it generally, because there's a lot to it, but generally I discuss it, and that's the most important thing sometimes, the sum and bonus summary. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna, and again, I'm gonna ask Mark Carney, Uncle Carney, we worked in banking, finance. What are we going to cut? What are we going to reduce? Since during the past 5 years, since February 2020, the amount of interest has increased by a big percentage. Got to check those numbers with the Bank of Canada. And since the increase of the interest has not kept up with the economical input and the economical increase, the GDP, the increase has only been about 1%, 2%, right? Even considering now with the tariffs is already hitting us. The industry is hard, so we got to be making that statement that 85% of our goods go in the market, the USA, the 50 states. Go in the USA, the 50 states. Go in the USA, the 50 states. You know, we have to be direct, and sometimes, you know, I understand certain other things, but the king is absent. The king is an absentee landlord. The king is an absentee landlord. The king is an absentee landlord. It's time for the republic, so the king is an absentee landlord. The king is an absentee landlord. And that's what it is, you know. The king is an absentee landlord. And that's what it is, you know. The king is an absentee landlord. This is a nice spot. I love this spot here with the rocks. So maybe one day just gonna come do some rock and roll here. Gonna do some rock and roll for the waves, for the DRT, pledge your allegiance, you know that I'm an N.A.C.W.P. I get that geopolitics, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite fitness activity. Dancing is my favorite sport. Rock and roll up in the go. In the concrete jungle, you can say hello. There's a little bit of flora on the fauna on the water by the river. Big river, that's a snake. North American Nile, that's a said. The Snake River. I call it the Snake River surrounding the island of the Hawk. I call it H-A-W-K. Where the lion and the sparse, Scarlet Woman, that's about. DRT, debt refusion theory. So, what are we going to cut? The RCMP staffs, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. What are we going to cut? What are we going to reduce? The RCMP. What are we going to reduce? What are we going to reduce? What are we going to reduce? the RCMPs, the Mounties, RCMPs, what are we gonna reduce, what are we gonna cut? The Mounties, the RCMPs, and that's what we're gonna do, the Mounties, the RCMPs, and that's how we're gonna get rock and rolling with that, you know. The Mounties, the RCMPs, and that's how we're gonna get doing. The Mounties, the RCMPs, that's how we're gonna cut, reduce the Mounties and the RCMP, and that's what we're gonna do and reduce, and that's how we're gonna get doing, man. Reduction of the Mounties and the RCMPs, and that's how we're gonna have to get doing with that. The Mounties and the RCMPs reduction, and that's how we're gonna have to get doing, you know, for the XYZ and for the left, for the right, and in the center, and that's how we're gonna get doing. Your beautiful flowers, look at that, beautiful flowers, and that's what we're gonna get doing here, man. You know, that's what we got. Nice, isn't it just gorgeous here by the river? Uncle Connie, what are we gonna have to cut and reduce? What are we gonna cut? What are we gonna reduce? What are we gonna cut and reduce? Police services, Mounties, RCMP. That's another nice spot here. What are we gonna reduce? The public workers. We're gonna cut the healthcare, the national defense, the prisons. Look at this beautiful spot here. I can come and you can dip a little bit the feet, and I guess here you gotta be careful, but because you don't swim here, you know. But there's spots where you can chillax, relax, and you can see part of the big river, how big it is, and feels like a resort. And we got the summer coming, so we're gonna rock and roll here a lot, and on the mountain, of course, and round about the island. And headquarters of the 63, we got a building in a total S.S.D Dragon Army complex, and another beautiful white flowers there. And we got to implement the DRT, debt refusion theory. The DRT, debt refusion theory, because we're gonna have to reduce and cut the budget. So what are we gonna cut? What are we gonna reduce? Hey, beautiful, eh? What are we gonna cut? What are we gonna reduce? Wow, look at these. Uncle Connie, what are we gonna cut? What are we gonna reduce? The garbage collection, the sanitation, the public health care, the RCMP, police, prisons, the national defense. What are we gonna cut where? So that's why we have to do we have to implement the DRT for both Canada and the United States together, jointly. Because the United States is in the same financial, economic, commercial situation for most of the public and the private together. So the DRT explained, we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. My $10,000, your $10,000, I got $10,000 to the RBC. So all my debt, all the public and the private debt of Canada, all the public-private debt of Canada, we're going to add it all up together. We're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to convert it into US dollars, and we're going to add it with the United States dollar. We're going to add it with the United States dollar. We're going to add it with the United States dollar. So we're going to add it with the United States dollar, and that's what we're going to do. And we're going to add it with the United States dollars. So due to the fact that we're going to add it with the United States dollar, the US dollars, we're going to add it with the US dollar, right? So we're going to add it all up with the US dollar. We're going to add it all up, the US dollar. All that money, the public-private debt of Canada, converted into US dollars, added with the public-private debt of the United States, plus the money in circulation, we're going to create a new currency called, and a new central bank, of course, whatever we name it, a new central bank. We're going to create the UE. U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.Unit. The UE, the Universal Exchange Unit. The UE. U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.Unit. The U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.Unit. The Universal Exchange Unit. The Universal Exchange Unit is going to have the value of the US dollar. The value of the US dollars. And we're going to set an interest rate level on this new currency of 10%. It could be below 10%, not more. It could be 7.18, 3.33, 1.56, 6.1, 9.3. So not below. It cannot be below. It cannot be below 10%. It cannot be below 10%. It cannot be below 10%. I mean, it can be only below 10%, not more than 10%. Correction. It can only be below 10%, not more. So not more than 10%, but below it can be. Below, not more than 10%. It could be below, not more than 10%. It could be below, not more than 10%. So that's just what we're gonna do. So below 10%, not more. It could be less than 10, but not more than 10. With this money, we're gonna rebuild the infrastructure of the North American Collective, the bridges, the sewers, the aqueducts. We're gonna rebuild the highways. We're gonna mass finance citizens fitness. Tourism, we're gonna build those 44 tunnels, the 44 tunnels across the 63. Mexico, if they will to join, maybe. Binationally, the DRT first, and build the 44 across the 63 tunnels inspired by the Cheyenne Mountain Complex and paradoxically inspired by the tunnels in Gaza. Paradoxically inspired by the tunnels in Gaza and the Montreal Underground Metro. Inspired by the tunnels in Gaza. And paradoxically, because it's a paradox, you know, it's a conflict which we'll see where it's going to be a resolution or not, but it's a conflict which dates from the 20th century, just like the Ukraine-Russia conflict dates from the 20th century Cold War period, and just like the potentially China and the Republic of China is known as Taiwan. The island of Taiwan is known as the ROC, while the 1.4 billion population state, the People's Republic of China, has to be differentiated from the political entity known as the ROC, Republic of China. So being that I'm an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, and geopolitics is my domain, and that is my domain, you know. So that is what it is with that, and that is consequently with which we have to be doing. So that is just the domain, you know. That is just the domain, you know. Just the domain. So that's how we gotta get doing with the rock and roll, and that's how we have to get drilling on that for the east, for the west, for the north, for the south, and that's how we gotta get doing on the rock and roll here on the side of things as we drill and as we go on the left and on the right and in the middle. Gotta meet that center for the DRT. It takes a public-private partnership across the North American Collective, and of course for all who are here now and who will come to join us or who are newly born in the DRT debt refusion theory. That's how we're gonna get doing on that go, and that's how we're gonna get on that love side of things. So the debt refusion theory, the DRT debt refusion theory, for the creation of the universal exchange, you know, for the creation of the universal exchange. And that's how we gotta get that complementary and compensatory manner, and here we can pass maybe. So we have to take all the public and the private debt, we're gonna have to convert it into US dollars. There's a way there. Is there a way? Yeah, just I gotta be really prudent. So it's a way up. So it's not to slide in the water, you know. Oi, that's jungle. I'm just gonna bend my knees and propel with force. Sometimes force is necessary. Look at how beautiful in Mother Nature. Oh, it's steep, because it's steep, see? So it's like jungle-like. See? Like how it's terrain, man. All terrain, dragon army, we all terrain, all territory. All seasons, all territory, dragon army. That's what it is. And here is steep and goes down again, but maybe I should go up, maybe I should now. Let's see. Yeah, I think up is the best way from here. And then just clock it in on the side, because there's more dangerous area terrain here, but I don't mind. Next time I guess we'll go down the other route. I'm just gonna go on from the from the jungle. Forest jungle like. Well, it's kind of, because it's close by the river, so it has that, you know, feel of a mixture of a mixture, you know. That's it, that's all. And so we gotta get doing with the XYZ, you know. Gotta get doing on the love. See, that's what we gotta get doing on that. Feels good, man. That was something which we can go up and down, and I would love to get a little bit of that painting here, you know, to paint these a little bit. I know, some blue, some purple. Some blue, some purple. Something like that, man, you know. Some blue, some purple. So you got little islands, 1, 2, 3, 4. Little islands like that. Little islands, you know, that's what we got, and that's what we gotta get doing like that, you know. Some little islands. So you gotta get drilling on the go, man, and gotta implement the DRT, you know. from the left, right, and center, and that's how we gotta get doing on the go side of things, you know. We gotta get doing on that left and on the right and on the doing side of things, and we gotta get doing on the love side of things, man. Sometimes we just gotta reconcile, you know. That's why we're gonna fuse the north to North Strong and Free with the south, 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 the south, the south, the south. To North Strong and Free with the South. That's what we're gonna get doing on the South, man. That's what we're gonna be freedom and loving also, you know, the home of the brave, land of the free, and the home of the brave, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, you know. So it's a great new world, man. We're now living, man. Brave new world. Dragon Army is gonna be part of that brave new world, and some of my dragons are black, some of my dragons are white, some of my dragons love yellow flowers like yours truly. For the homosexuals, cuckolds, and those who do their criminal rehabilitations, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, the plumbers, the electricians, the welders, for the flora, the fauna, for the 63, for the 21st century, pledge your allegiance, legions, the DRT, the detrofusion theory, the DRT, detrofusion theory. We're gonna implement it, and we have to. It's an emergency. That's why it requires public-private partnership and all intellectuals and IT workers and Bill Gates and the tech giants and all from the small, unemployed, aspie like myself, financially stressed but always open for work. Arbeit, trabajo, travay. Always for that 24/7, you know. We're grateful, thankful, rent's paid, and paradoxically, I put on the table for the North American Collectif, Canada, United States, the DRT. Wall Street gotta get it. Black Rock and Blackstone are two financial institutions which differed, and they split in the 1988 or 89, but it takes other financial institutions, and it's Blackstone, you know. Blackstone and Blackstone and whatever the case may be, and that's what it is with that, and that's how we're gonna get drilling with the go, and that's how we're gonna get doing on that, man. So we're gonna take all the not just Blackstone, but Black Rock. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, and we're gonna convert it into US dollars. So all the debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars, you know. So we're gonna convert it into US dollars, and that's what we're gonna be doing, you know. We're gonna convert it into US dollars, all the public-private debt, and we're gonna add it up, you know. We're gonna add it up. All the public-private debt, we're gonna add it up together, you know. All the public-private debt, we're gonna add it up together, you know. We're gonna add it up together, all the public-private debt. We're gonna add it all together, add it up, you know. We're gonna add it all up, convert the public-private debt of Canada into US dollars, and all that public-private debt, we're gonna add it with the public-private debt of the USA. We're gonna create the UE, U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.Unit, the U.Universal, U.Exchange, U.Unit, the UE is gonna have the value of the US dollar. Beautiful tree here, and all that money, we're gonna do lots of good. We're gonna rebuild the infrastructure. Gotta build those 44 tunnels inspired by the Montreal Underground Village. The Montreal Underground Village, built mostly for the harsh winters, couple of kilometers, and also the other one, which is known as the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. And paradoxically, the tunnels in Gaza, supposedly they're between 350 miles and 500 or 600 miles underneath the ground, deep. Some concrete, steel reinforced. So for the North American Collectif, we gotta build those 44 in case of a thermonuclear war, to stack them with food and be able to withhold some, maybe some millions of people. That's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing, man. It has to build those 44 tunnels. Parallel with that, we're gonna finance fitness. People who work out, train, exercise. build the Golden Hawk, build the 4, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, and build, of course, the other ones. And we're going to also build mass finance tourism as well. Mass finance tourism. Mass finance tourism. Mass finance tourism. We're gonna mass finance tourism with that. That's all we gotta get doing on the XYZ. That's what it is with the XYZ. That's all we gotta get rock and rolling with that. And so we gotta get drilling on the love side of things, you know. And so we gotta get doing on the XYZ. And I don't know, but that's what we gotta do because it's an emergency. Emergency for that drill and emergency for the rock and roll and emergency for the collective. So as I call all for sportsmanship, you know, sportsmanship conduct, and that's how we gotta get that sportsmanship conduct to get it now. And we have to implement the DRT ASAP. It's really an emergency if you think about it, because we're on the verge of a public financial collapse. Public financial collapse, see? Because so much debt, people can't pay the interest. And the problem is the cost of living still increases. The prices are still increasing. That's why there's the big problem. The problem is, so we gotta do, you know? So we got, you know. So we gotta get doing for the drill, man. Pledge your allegiance. Lots of building, and we're going to finance and lay the foundations for the 2 complementary covenant and cooperative institutions. There you can do some fishing, you know. There you can do some fishing, and that's what it is with that. And that's what it is with the rock and roll, you know. So, yeah, wow, there's a lot of people fishing. So I always wonder if it's an extensive fishing zone, you know. Is it a fishing zone? Are there more fishes here? Because I see a lot of people come here, and maybe they know here if it's really for fishing a lot. Seems like there's a very popular place to fish. I rarely see so many people, just concentrated people here, you know. Anyway, it's good for them, fish, and maybe they get some fish. Maybe next time I'll ask, because now I'm on the DRT, but yeah, I guess, yeah, it's fair. You leave a bit of meters, a little distance in between, you know, to not interfere, and that's about it. Rock and roll, man. Gonna switch to that French, the DRT. We're gonna create the complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, Dragon Army for S.S.D, for security, service, and defense. The North American Collective Integrated Security, Service, and Defense Legion for the 63, the S.S.D Legion, Security, Service, and Defense Legion, parallel to the Dancing Goddess Army, the North American Integrated Dance League, the North American Integrated Dance League, the North American Integrated Dance League, North American Integrated Dance League, North American Integrated Dance League for the environmental cleaning, protection, and all the other things we gotta do for the Dancing Goddess Army. And here we are underneath the sky, you know, those beautiful weeping willows, and pledge your allegiance, and that's all we gotta do, you know. We gotta get that collective for the side, and sun shining, might keep up the king the sun, the debt provision theory, again explain. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna convert it into US dollars. We're gonna add it with the US dollar. With the US dollar. All that money is going to be the money supply for a new central bank, and we're going to create the 2 complementary covenant and cooperative institutions. The Dragon Army, the Dancing Goddess Army. That's what we're going to create together, you know. We have to be doing that ASAP, man. ASAP. The Dancing Goddess Army, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, and that's what we're going to get doing, man. Gonna get doing on that, and so we're gonna get on that love, you know. Here we are gonna do, and so we gotta get drilling. Beautiful things here. Look at that. Look at that beautiful. Hey, it's so nice there. That's what I gotta get doing for that, man. Gotta get on that. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, before we switch to French, once again revision. The debt refusion theories, gonna take all the public and the private debt, and that's how we got, and that's why the youth, salute the youth, saluting the youth, and they're happy, joyous, I'm happy, joyous, you know. Gotta get it on the go, and gotta get it on the do, man, and that's how we gotta get doing, man. So we gotta get doing like that, you know. That's about it, man, you know. DRT, man. Debt refusion theory. Gonna have to take it on the DRT. The debt refusion theory. D, debt, R, refusion T theory. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt, we're gonna take it. And we're gonna create this new complex. So the DRT, debt refusion theory. Here you go, a little bit of that boat, man. Boat good, man. Boom. So that's what it is gonna be on the XYZ, and that's how we're gonna get on that go side of things, and that's how we're gonna get on the SYZ, and that's what we're gonna get doing with that, and gonna get that's how we're gonna get loving on that side of things, man. Gonna get on that rock and roll, man. So we gotta get on the love side of things, you know. Oh no. That's what it is with that, and that's what we're gonna get doing with that. So we're gonna get on that rock and roll, man, trippy side of things, man. You know, all that funny stuff, funny business, but let your legions. Things are serious, but humor is good for the mind, body, and gratitude and regular exercise, and that's how we gotta get doing on the XYZ, and we gotta get on the love side of things, and we gotta get on the love side of things, and we gotta get doing, you know, and we gotta get going on that. And that's how we gotta get doing on the love side of things. And gotta get loving, man. Here we got a muse. I mix it up and put some of that French, and we can do a little bit of French, English, French, Spanish, and so we're gonna sing a little bit of that rock and roll in Spanish, and that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get doing. That's how we gotta get doing on the love side of things, man. You know, is the love, man. Love also. So the DRT, public-private partnership, it has to be with Wall Street and Blackstone, BlackRock, and Bill Gates, and all the institutions, organizations across the collective to create the UE, this new central bank, new currency. Look at that beauty. I find that just gorgeous. Makes me think of the infinity something that doesn't come to me now. A philosopher, Augustin, something like that. It's like a pillar, and it's really, really gorgeous. DRT, debt refusion tree for the creation of the UE, you know. Pledge your allegiance, and I guess those clocks, towers sounding that 6 o'clock, man. So that's how we got, and that's how we're gonna get doing with that love, and get a little bit of that French, because we're in la belle province, and get a little bit of that French side of things, you know. So get it loving, and I guess I could let my man out here, but no, on the mount. So, bienvenue, hein, Québécois, Québécoises, on est proche de la rivière, je pense que les cloches sonnent à 6 de l'N.A.C.W.P. C'est tard après-midi, pas vraiment en soirée, mais en tout cas, anyways, je vous encourage à faire l'entraînement physique. Je suis à la marche, on est jeudi. Je dois dire, commencer comme toujours avec la gratitude. La gratitude, j'ai payé mon loyer, j'ai payé ma facture d'électricité. J'ai du café, j'ai du thé, je me suis acheté du café quand même. Mais je voulais m'acheter le café que j'ai acheté auparavant, mais le prix a augmenté tellement. Ça a sauté de 6,99 à 15,99, quelque chose, 16,99. Ça fait plus que 10 $, fait que c'est plus que double. Il y a un an et demi, hein, je l'ai acheté à 6,99. Après ça, ça a sauté à 11,99. Ça a augmenté de 5 $. Puis là, ça a augmenté encore de 5. Fait que 2 fois, ça a augmenté de 5. Fait qu'à 10, là, c'est rendu à 16,99. Fait que plus que double. En seulement, même pas 2 ans. La dernière fois que je l'ai acheté, c'était là 2 ans, je pense. 1 an et demi même. 18 mois à peu près. Que je l'ai acheté, le no-name, là, le café sans nom, là, qui appelle. Fait que je demandais, bien sûr, que c'est la chose qu'il faut qu'on fasse dans le calcul du pourcentage. Je fais référence au pourcentage, le calcul, tu sais. Le pourcentage, le calcul du pourcentage de l'augmentation des prix. Je me fais référence, bien sûr, le pourcentage de l'augmentation des prix, généralement, ça augmente. Puis là, on voit bien sûr qu'il y a bien des grèves qui se passent. Moi, vous savez, mais moi, ma souffrance maintenant, c'est juste économique, là, commerciale, financièrement, là, juste de manière du commerce, de l'économie, des finances. Là. C'est juste ça. En ce moment, j'ai juste ce problème. À part ça, je suis jovial, joyeux. Vous savez, je me cache pas depuis des années, mais je fais partie de la communauté LGBTQ. Puis, bien sûr, on m'avait diagnostiqué, puis bien des années qu'on m'avait dit que moi-même, je vis avec l'Asperger's. L'autisme non fonctionnel, c'est une condition de neurodivergence. Justement, tantôt, je parlais avec un concitoyen, puis il savait pas c'était quoi. Il n'y a pas bien des gens qui savent c'est quoi, parce que c'est rare. Pas bien des gens qui l'ont. C'est moins d'1%, moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage. C'est 0,44%. Puis il y a encore beaucoup de démystification à faire. C'est pas une maladie mentale. Pas une maladie mentale, tu sais. C'est pas une maladie non plus. C'est juste que nous, on a des mutations dans le cerveau. Fait qu'à cause et grâce à ces mutations qui sont dans le cerveau, ces mutations font que nous, on voit les choses différemment. Puis on a qu'est-ce qu'on appelle des intérêts spéciaux, aussi connus comme des intérêts obsessifs. Ces intérêts spéciaux, aussi connus comme intérêts obsessifs, ça préoccupe toute notre journée, toute notre routine, notre rituel de routine. Puis moi, ça fait bien des années, je vois mes vidéos, je fais pas mal la même chose. C'est sûr qu'à cause que mon intérêt spécial, aussi connu comme obsessif, c'est la géopolitique. C'est sûr que des événements de la géopolitique, ça se passe au quotidien. Fait que ces événements, il faut toujours que je fasse dans le quotidien, tu sais. Au quotidien, bien sûr que je m'encourage dans le quotidien pour en avoir, bien sûr, de l'histoire du quotidien. Parce que c'est au quotidien que ça se passe. Tu sais, ces choses-là. Là, comme maintenant, il faut que je me concentre sur la situation actuelle aux États-Unis, faire des analyses, et puis bien sûr, je leur fais appel à ceux qui sont déployés, les Marines, puis bien sûr, les Marines, et les autres de la garde nationale de faire du sportsmanship, une conduite du sportsmanship envers, bien sûr, les concitoyens, tu sais. Parce que le protocole de défense et de sécurité totale de 9.1 du Dragon sont pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord. Et bien sûr, c'est ces choses-là que moi-même, dans le but d'avoir une résolution des conflits internes, et bien sûr pour la protection de la côte à côte de défense, mes théories en géopolitique, c'est une valeur extrême parce que je suis un analyste et théoricien en géopolitique indépendant. Je fais depuis des années des analyses de théorie en géopolitique, j'en fais au quotidien. Des fois, je passe des heures, le matin, le soir, l'après-midi, quand je suis chez nous, mais je me rends à faire ça. C'est ça vraiment la routine des Asperger's. C'est vis-à-vis ces choses-là. C'est vis-à-vis ces choses-là qu'on se dirige, nous, aux intérêts spéciaux. C'est sûr que ça varie, tu sais. Pour un autre aspect, mais ça peut être quelque chose d'autre, tu sais. Ça peut être quelque chose d'autre, mais pour moi, bien sûr, c'est l'analyse et la théorie en géopolitique, le sport et l'entraînement physique et le sport que je préfère, bien sûr. L'entraînement physique, c'est le sport que je préfère moi-même. C'est des choses, bien sûr, que je préfère faire, le rock&roll, tu sais. C'est ça que je fais au quotidien, la Trinité, bien sûr, c'est toujours, constamment ces choses-là. C'est constamment ces choses-là. De la géopolitique, l'entraînement physique, que je fais bien sûr, c'est quelque chose qui m'intéresse au quotidien, mais c'est quelque chose que je le fais moi-même, tu sais. C'est bien sûr, quelque chose que je dois le faire dans le quotidien. C'est quelque chose que les aspects, on a une routine, on a un rituel comme une routine. Puis on fait des répétitions, puis on a certaines caractéristiques qui sont bizarres, étranges, qui paraissent un peu bizarres, étranges, et pas dans la norme, tu sais. C'est pas dans la norme de la société, tu sais. Certaines choses qu'on a de la misère à comprendre, à mettre en application des normes non écrites, des lois non écrites, tu sais. Telles quelles, bien sûr, telles quelles, les lois les lois, bien sûr, comme, tu sais, l'espace personnel, tu sais, l'espace personnel, tu sais, se rapprocher d'une distance de 10 mètres, de 3 mètres, de quoi que ce soit, tu sais, de 2-3 pieds, de 2-3 pieds, bien sûr. Tu sais, la distance personnelle, tu sais, la distance personnelle, c'est quelque chose qu'on a tendance à briser, c'est norme non écrite. On va se rapprocher tellement proche d'un citoyen, concitoyen, que ça peut causer une alarme, ça peut causer une inquiétude. Ça peut causer une alarme, ça peut causer une inquiétude. Tu sais, ces choses-là. C'est ça, ces choses qui sont un peu étranges. Mais moi, je suis pas violent, j'aime pas la violence. Je me considère comme ma famille, mais je suis hyper vigilant. Je vis dans une hyper vigilance. J'ai vécu mon trompe, je me suis fait attaquer par surprise. Il y a une couple d'années, je dois retrouver à l'hôpital général juif, je dois aller voir des archives, c'était quand exactement, mais je me suis fait attaquer par surprise. Je me suis fait attaquer par surprise, je suis tombé, j'ai cogné ma tête sur le ciment, puis... Je suis tombé, je connais ma tête. J'ai tombé ma tête, bien sûr. J'ai tombé ma tête. Et bien sûr, j'avais le bras droit disloqué. J'étais tout ensanglé, là. J'étais ensanglé, fait que j'étais comme dans un coma. Ils m'ont mis des médicaments pour la douleur, là. J'étais tout ensanglé. J'ai une perte de mémoire aussi. J'ai la misère à me souvenir de ma vie avant que j'aille déménager. Fait que j'ai déménagé, bien sûr. Fait que j'ai déménagé, je pense que c'était 2000. C'est possible que le 1er juillet, c'est 9 ans ou 10 ans depuis que j'ai déménagé, donc j'habitais dans une place avec beaucoup de moisissures. C'était une petite place comme une cellule de prison, là. J'ai servi mon temps, tu sais. Puis j'ai vécu cette trompe, cette violence. Puis j'aime pas la violence, mais je suis hyper vigilant. Puis je vis avec cette différence et je suis différent. Puis ça faisait bien des années qu'on me l'avait diagnostiqué. Puis à cause de différentes personnes, là, citoyens qui m'ont diagnostiqué. Puis moi-même aussi, finalement, il y a 3 ans et demi, j'ai accepté, ben, je suis différent, tu sais, j'ai cette différence. Puis je dois toujours bâtir des ponts envers les neurotypiques, parce que nous, les HP, les autistes homofonctionnels, les Asperger, nous, il y a des mutations dans le cerveau. Puis la cause, qu'est-ce qui cause ça, c'est inconclu. Il n'y a pas vraiment de conclusion là-dessus, qu'est-ce qui cause. C'est soit héréditaire, c'est soit héréditaire, ou partiellement héréditaire, et partiellement, bien sûr, puis environnemental de l'environnement. Fait que nous, on voit le monde différemment. C'est juste ça, nous, on voit le monde différemment. On a cette différence de comment on voit le monde. Et on a nos intérêts spéciaux, aussi connus comme intérêts obsessifs, puis il n'y a pas de médicament pour l'Asperger. C'est juste si, malheureusement, dans ma communauté, les Aspi, le taux de chômage, de sans-emploi, à cause de ce problème qu'on a des fois avec la communication non verbale ou la manière qu'on s'exprime, des fois on peut être direct, on peut être offensif. Fait que c'est des choses bien sûr que je dois toujours être attentif moi aussi envers ces choses que je le fais moi-même, tu sais, dans cet environnement. Il y a une belle maison là. J'aimerais ça partager ça 50-50 avec mon ami. Fait que je vais rentrer faire puis je vais continuer après avoir soulagé puis hey, merci, c'est une belle plage, je trouve, comment c'est fait électrique. Mais là, gaspillez pas de même. Si vous êtes capable de faire quelque chose de beau, là, on pourrait faire entendre quelque part que votre impulsion créative, là, mais ça, c'est du débarbouillage ici pour le public. Là. Peut-être que ça va donner mal au cœur à certains gens, mais je suis pour donner. Si vous êtes capable là, de faire de l'art, je parle graffiti, là, je suis pour vous donner des places avec le public. C'est à travers le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, à travers Montréal. Là. Mais ici, de barber de même, déjà, c'est une belle place. Ça fait penser un peu scientifique. Ça fait penser à une capsule qu'on lancerait sur Mars, tu sais. Cette place-là, avec un beau orange, là, c'est quand même beau. Puis, comment c'est fait? Fait que là, juste Faites pas ça, faites pas ça. C'est nouveau, ça, la semaine passée, c'était pas là. Moi, vous êtes capable de faire quelque chose de beau, là, s'il vous plaît. Graffiti, quelque part, je comprends, là, en bas des ponts, vous êtes capable de faire des choses de beau, on peut s'entendre. Je veux pas faire de la police non plus. Puis, ma manière, c'est quand même laisser vivre, là, mais s'il vous plaît, votre pulsion, là, en dedans, c'est une belle place, c'est quand même une belle, hein? C'est électrique, c'est fait de nouveau, puis on n'a pas beaucoup de public de même, hein? Avec de l'électrique, tu vois, on peut se laver les mains, on peut avoir du lavage de mains, ça c'est du savon, après ça c'est de l'eau, puis après ça c'est pour sécher. Sécheuse. Les trois qui sont électriques là, puis c'est quand même une belle capsule, une belle place. Fait que juste faites pas ça, s'il vous plaît, ici, là, comme ça de même, là. T'sais. Yeah, you gotta wash your hands, and see when we go out, that goes on, see? So this is really cool. That I don't do the graffiti, but it's really nice, you know. So I gotta appreciate it, you know. Gonna drink some water there, and so we got a Rock&Roll there, and so we gotta give a little bit of thank you for building this, putting it here, and it's just public. So please don't scribble it. Just don't do that. Just don't. Please don't. Please. It's so nice. So hydrate a bit, and so I'm gonna get hydration here. Get some hydrate. Oh yeah. Fait que c'est ça, s'il vous plaît. Bob, faites pas du débarbouillage de même là-dedans. Faites pas du débarbouillage là-dedans, tu sais. C'est des choses bien sûres qu'il faut qu'on fasse, tu sais. C'est des choses bien sûres qu'il faut qu'on aide, tu sais. C'est le faire dans l'histoire, tu sais, d'avoir du propre pour moi, pour nous, pour vous tous, là. C'est pas juste pour moi-même, mais des choses bien sûres qu'il faut qu'on soit intégral dans la manière qu'on garde l'espace public, tu sais. L'espace public. Fait que s'il vous plaît, faites pas du débarbouiller de même. Vous savez que moi, je suis pour très fortement soutenir des places à vous donner, hein, si vous êtes capable de faire du graffiti. Si vous êtes capable, si vous êtes capable, vous êtes capable. Si vous êtes capable. Si vous êtes capable, bien sûr, d'avoir une expression de même, juste, je sais que vous devrez sublimer, là, canalisation, puis faire de la sublimation, là, comme l'agression, puis les impulsions, là, de le faire. Je sais que c'est dur des fois, là, mais c'est juste exercer un contrôle, là, sur ces impulsions, parce que, tu sais, c'était pas beau, là. C'était pas beau, je trouvais pas si beau. Des fois, il y en a que je trouve vraiment beau, là. Les graffitis, là, qu'ils le font, là, vous êtes artiste, là. Graffiti, wow, des fois, je regarde, c'est bien fait. Mais ça, ce que j'ai vu, là, dans le public, là, quand même, c'est du débarbouillage, ça donne mal aux yeux, un peu, là. Puis, tu sais, c'était beau auparavant, là. C'était beau, ça fait un peu, tu sais, haute technologie, là, un peu capsule, là, qu'on devrait lancer dans l'espace, là, tu sais. En tout cas, je ne vais pas tarder, je vais juste discuter de la TRD maintenant, à la rivière, là. TRD, de la réfusion démocratique, TRD de la réfusion de la dette, là. TRD, refusion de la dette, TRD de la refusion de la dette, pour le faire dans cet ensemble de l'affaire d'avoir de quelque chose pour faire, pour mettre sur la table, c'est quelque chose que je dois dire puis me prononcer que la TRD de la refusion de la dette, TRD de la refusion de la dette, la TRD de la refusion de la dette, bien sûr, c'est quelque chose qu'il faut qu'on fasse dans la plupart des choses qu'on est rendu maintenant, c'est la TRD de la refusion de la dette. bien sûr, la TRD. Pourquoi je me prononce ainsi? C'est car le montant qu'on a payé sur la dette publique, ça a augmenté. L'intérêt seulement qu'on a payé sur la dette publique, ça a augmenté beaucoup durant la COVID, la coronavirus. Moi-même, je l'ai eu, la coronavirus, donc je peux dire que je me suis fait vacciner 3 fois, puis même que je reçois, bien sûr, de la bonté pour continuer les protocoles d'hygiène en public, qu'on se lave les mains le plus possible à cause des bactéries, des microbes et des germes qui existent. Hein? Puis, en public, on a cette responsabilité que je veux qu'on garde quand même le plus possible. T'sais. Je sais que des fois, on retourne nos vieilles habitudes, mais c'est bon des fois de certaines nouvelles habitudes, comme augmenter l'hygiène en public ou l'entraînement physique. Moi-même, vous savez que j'étais en dépression et suicidaire. Hein? Malheureusement, chez ma communauté, je fais partie d'une petite communauté, par exemple, des Aspergers du Québec, on n'est pas beaucoup, hein? C'est moins d'1%, c'est moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage, c'est moins de 0,44%. Moins de 1%, moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage, moins de 0,44%. Il n'y a pas bien des Aspergers, puis il n'y a pas beaucoup de gens qui savent c'est quoi. Puis il y a encore beaucoup de travail à faire. C'est pas une maladie mentale, c'est juste que notre cerveau il a ses mutations et donc à cause de ces cerveaux, certaines choses, on peut avoir de la misère, on peut avoir de la difficulté, tu sais, dans certaines choses, on peut avoir de la difficulté dans les interactions sociales ou la manière qu'on interagit, bien sûr, c'est la manière qu'on interagit ou la manière qu'on communique, tu sais, non verbal, non écrite, ça peut être un peu bizarre, ça peut offenser certains gens, certains citoyens dans un contexte où on est moins doué, on est moins capable, on est médiocre, comme ci, comme ça, dans les interactions sociales. Mais quand ça vient à la géopolitique, moi-même, parce que ça peut être un autre intérêt spécial pour d'autres aspects, en tant qu'individu aspect, mon intérêt spécial, moi j'en ai la trinité d'intérêts spéciaux, aussi connu comme intérêt obsessif chez les aspects. Soyez prudents, tassez-vous de la police pour pas que vous soyez en accident. Il faut que vous soyez prudents. Laissez la police faire le travail. Et les pompiers aussi, soyez prudents sur l'autoroute. Tassez-vous, vous entendez la lumière, puis ralentissez. Si vous entendez le bruit, là, vous êtes conducteur, chauffeur, ralentissez un peu. Ralentissez mollo, tu sais. On est en crise quand même, situation d'urgence, on ne sait jamais, tu sais. Possible que ça arrive une invasion, tu sais, externe, là, ou d'autres conflits internes, là. Ah! D'autres conflits internes. C'était quoi ça? Hey, c'était beau ça. Fait que c'est possible, là, ça arrive. Il peut y avoir des bombes, tu sais, les bombes nucléaires. Ben, un missile intercontinental, tu sais, ça peut nous frapper, là, jusqu'ici. Ça peut se rendre de la Russie, hein, c'est 10 400 km qu'ils peuvent traverser, tu sais. 10 400 km, c'est beaucoup, là. Imaginez-vous, tu sais, c'est beaucoup, hein. 1400 km, tu sais, c'est beaucoup, tu sais. C'est beaucoup, hein. Fait que ça peut traverser de la Russie en Montréal. Fait on sait jamais, tu sais, hein, ça peut venir d'en haut sur le côté ou ça peut mobiliser à l'interne, tu sais. Ça peut, tu sais, c'est néfaste qu'ils font dans la situation, qu'il faut qu'on se mobilise dans le contexte pour la sécurité, service et défense totale. C'est ça qu'il faut qu'on fasse, l'implémentation de ma trinité de théorie. L'implémentation de la trinité de théorie, bien sûr. La théorie de la refusion de la dette, la théorie d'intégration citoyenne, la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Je trouve que cette maison, vous voyez, est rouge-blanche, et les automobiles sont blancs aussi, ça match. Les 3 autos, là, ça match avec la maison, ça me fait penser quelque chose de comme symétrie, là, une symétrie, là, c'est ça, c'est comme des petits gros camions, mais je sais pas, je trouve ça beau. Je trouve ça beau, une belle maison, puis les automobiles matchent la couleur avec la maison, là, ça me fait penser quelque chose de chic. En tout cas, c'est cool. Je trouve ça beau, comme dans un petit film de quelque chose, là, mais bien sûr que je suis pas juste Asperger's, mais je suis un N.A.C.W.P. Ça veut dire un citoyen qui vit avec la condition de neurodivergence connue comme l'Asperger, qui est aussi artiste, athlète et philosophe. Et bien sûr, on doit faire beaucoup de prudence aujourd'hui, mais beaucoup de stress économique, financier moi-même. J'ai eu un stress financier, mais j'ai eu bien de l'emploi. Mais malheureusement, chez ma communauté, mais c'est 11 fois plus élevé que la majorité des citoyens que vous êtes les neurotypiques, le 99,56% de la population, bien sûr. Ils ne vivent pas un taux de sans-emploi de même, un taux de sans-emploi de même, tu sais. Comment que moi je le vis dans le temps d'avoir de l'emploi, tu sais. Fait que bien sûr, c'est quelque chose que je dois considérer chaque fois que j'ai une opportunité, bien sûr, à faire un travail ou en faire un travail ou des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je le fasse, moi, dans la théorie de la géopolitique, en tant qu'analyste et théoricien en géopolitique. J'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant en 2019. C'est ça que je fais tous les jours. Plus l'entraînement physique et plus le rock&roll. Depuis bien des années, c'est ça ma trinité d'intérêt obsessif. Le rock&roll, l'entraînement physique, la géopolitique. La géopolitique, l'entraînement physique et le rock&roll. L'entraînement physique, la géopolitique et le rock&roll. L'entraînement physique que je préfère, c'est la danse. C'est la danse, tu sais. Fait que l'entraînement physique, c'est la danse que je préfère. Et bien sûr, j'adore la danse. Regardez comment c'est beau comme ça. Je trouve ça beau comme ça. La rivière. En tout cas, fait que c'est des choses que moi, je dois le faire dans le contexte d'avoir une certaine prudence aussi, une certaine vigilance, parce que j'ai vécu, comme je vous ai parlé auparavant, j'étais attaqué par surprise, je suis tombé, je connais ma tête, j'étais tout ensanglé, puis je vis avec plein de cicatrices, j'ai survécu la COVID, mais j'étais en dépression, j'étais suicidaire, mais malheureusement, chez les Aspergers, c'est pas juste le taux de chômage, le taux de sans-emploi qui est très, très, très élevé, c'est entre 60 et 80%, là. C'est 11 fois plus que la population normale, le chômage des 99,56%, là. Puis 9 fois plus d'A.S.P souffrent de dépression et de suicide, des tendances suicidaires, de suicide, des tendances et des impulsions, des pensées suicidaires. 9 fois plus! Fait que pour chaque un citoyen que vous constituez les 99,56%, la majorité, la grosse majorité des citoyens, vous êtes neurotypiques, contre les neurodivergents, qu'on a une petite minorité de moins d'1%. Moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage, 0,44% seulement. Il n'y en a pas bien, les Aspergers. Nous, le taux de chômage est très élevé. Le taux de chômage, le taux de sans-emploi, il est très élevé. Fait que à cette manière, donc moi, je sais que dans certaines choses, je suis médiocre, je suis comme ça, je suis pas bon. Fait que ça fait que j'ai cette difficulté. Hey, c'est bon ça. Pas de gaspillage alimentaire, ah non. Je vais le laisser pour les autres. Qui est ouvert, puis il y a les fourmis, là. Je pensais que ça venait juste d'être jeté, mais ils ont commencé à manger dedans. Hein, fait que je vais le laisser. Hein, si je... C'est comme une Et bien sûr, c'est 11 fois plus que la sans emploi. Une belle place ici pour venir faire de la méditation dans l'eau. Avec les jambes, les pieds dans l'eau ici. Wow. Là, je vais venir quand même faire chaud. En tout cas. Fait que le taux de suicide, le taux de sans emploi est très élevé. Là aussi, vous pouvez aller. Là. C'est une belle place. Là. J'ai des petites feuilles de fleurs ici sur le blanc comme ça. And that's what it is. And that's what it is with that. And that's what it is. And so we gotta get doing with that. And so we gotta get doing on the rock&roll things, man. C'est ça. Fait que l'Asperger, chez nous, chez moi, j'ai vécu la dépression, j'ai vécu le suicide, les tendances suicidaires. Puis qu'est-ce que ça m'a fait sortir de la dépression? C'est quand j'ai traversé le Canada de côte à côte. J'ai traversé le Canada de côte à côte. Hein. en traversant le Canada de côte à côte, traverser le Canada de côte à côte, traverser le Canada de côte à côte, ça m'a fait avoir comme un réveil quand je suis arrivé à Banff, là, les Rocheuses, les montagnes, j'ai dit waouh, waouh, les Rocheuses, les montagnes, c'était quelque chose de beau. Tu sais, c'est les Rocheuses, les montagnes, hein. C'était quelque chose de beau, tu sais. Puis comme un petit paradis, fait que j'ai eu comme un réveil en traversant le Canada. En 2017, l'été 2017, en traversant le Canada, j'ai établi un esprit de corps solide avec le Québec, le Canada et les États-Unis. Nos frères et sœurs dans les 50 États aux États-Unis parce qu'il faut qu'on se fusionne. Hein. Il faut qu'on se fusionne. Et bien sûr, tous ceux qui viennent nous rejoindre, une autre belle place pour venir prendre les pieds dans l'eau, ou vous chantez, ou que vous faites. Ah, je veux pas. Ah, des animaux qui sont belles, beaux, et on grandit, ils grandissent. Là, 2-3 semaines, je les ai vus, ils étaient toutes comme de l'or, tu sais. Comme de l'or. C'est des choses, bien sûr, comme de l'or, bien sûr. C'est bien sûr d'avoir de la divergence qui grandissent. Ici, pas besoin de vous manger, inquiétez-vous pas. J'ai le frigidaire, j'ai de quoi manger dans le frigidaire, je vais vous laisser tranquille. C'est tranquille. On va faire dans une autre vie peut-être, mais une fois dans une autre vie, j'étais né homme-femme. J'étais né homme-femme, j'étais né homme-femme, femme-homme, puis c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je le fasse, bien sûr, pour le faire dans ce compromis, le faire de la XYZ, et c'est des choses, bien sûr, que je dois faire. Moi-même, le travail constamment de bâtir des ponts avec les neurotypiques. Je dois toujours faire un travail constant, faire un effort, tu sais, envers mes frères et sœurs qui sont neurotypiques. Alors, c'est une neurodivergence, mais ça fait que j'ai certains... Et bien sûr, ces caractéristiques peuvent être étranges, là, tu sais. C'est pour les neurotypiques. Ces caractéristiques peuvent être comme répéter 2-3 fois la même phrase, s'approcher trop proche des gens dans la conversation, dans d'autres mots, briser les espaces personnels, là. L'espace personnel, ou décoller là aussi, ou discuter trop de nos intérêts et de nos sujets. Si je discute de la géopolitique, je peux en parler pendant des heures, puis c'est ça que je fais au quotidien. Hein. Puis j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant en 2019. En octobre 2019, j'ai la preuve, j'ai la vidéo en ligne. J'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant en 2019. J'ai quand même une part d'une solution pour qu'est-ce que j'appelle les 63. Qu'est-ce que j'appelle les 63? Qu'est-ce que j'appelle les 63? Qu'est-ce que j'appelle les 63, le collectif du royaume de la déesse qui danse et du dragon, le royaume du dragon, qui est fondamentalement un appel pour et à un partenariat public-privé, un PPP à travers le collectif des 10 provinces, plus 50 États, plus 3 territoires. Ça fait 63 entités politiques dans ce nouveau partenariat public-privé que je fais appel depuis durant la COVID, plusieurs années, même avant que Donald Trump soit réélu. Puis je dois dire que principalement, là, qu'est-ce que je veux dire maintenant comme sujet, comme déclaration, c'est que nous, en géopolitique, principalement notre politique externe, là, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Il faut qu'on se vise comme politique externe. Je ne parle pas de la domestique. Mais externe, tu sais. Mais externe, bien sûr. Externe. Quand ça vient ou externe, tu sais. Quand ça vient à la politique externe, tu sais. C'est nous, il faut qu'on aille à première place. À première place, notre intérêt principalement, fondamentalement, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. C'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. C'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Principalement, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. C'est juste, ça a été au 20e siècle. Ce principe, ça a été vrai, la véridique et la vérité. Et ça sera dans le 21e siècle. Là. Vous comprenez? Parce qu'en géopolitique, là, la politique externe, je parle pas de la politique interne domestique, mais externe, en première place, numéro 1, fondamentalement, nous, là, Québécois, Canadiens, Québécois, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations économiques, financières, commerciales, de défense, de sécurité avec les États-Unis. Ça, c'est une constance, c'est constamment comme ça change pas, ça. C'est comme le principe pi, là. Tu sais, le symbole pi représentatif du cercle et du diamètre. Le diamètre, le cercle. Tu sais, la circonférence, relation de la circonférence du diamètre vis-à-vis un cercle. C'est comme le pi, 3.1415. 3.1415. 3.1415, 3.1415. Ça change pas. Ça changera pas dans le 21e siècle. Au moins dans les prochaines années, là, dans les prochaines décennies même, puis peut-être pour toujours, vis-à-vis comment on va changer, comment on va s'intégrer, puis fusionner le Nord puis le Sud, le Canada et les États-Unis, parce que le roi est absent. Hein. Le roi est absent. C'est le temps pour la République. Et ma manière de fusionner avec les États-Unis, c'est mieux par ma trinité de théorie, surtout la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Je vais discuter maintenant que je suis sur le sujet, mais je vais répéter encore une fois, là. Cette déclaration, il n'a pas de peut-être ou non. C'est toujours oui en géopolitique. Puis notre politique externe, en première place, fondamentalement, nous, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Avec les États-Unis. Il n'y a pas de oui. Il y a juste oui. Fait qu'il n'y a pas de peut-être. Il n'y a pas de non. Il n'y a pas de non. Il n'y a pas de peut-être. Notre relation, fondamentalement, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. C'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Il n'y a pas de oui, il n'y a pas de non peut-être. Il y a seulement oui. Il n'y a pas de peut-être. Il n'y a pas de non. Fait qu'il n'y a pas de non. Il y a seulement oui. 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 Il n'y a pas de peut-être. Fait que fondamentalement, en essence, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Nous, notre intérêt principalement, fondamentalement, cette déclaration ne change pas. C'est le même depuis le 20e siècle. Là. N'importe quel roi Charles dise, mais c'est le même hein, pour les Québécois et les Canadiens. Puis notre avenir de destin commun, que j'admire ces petites belles fleurs jaunes, là, que j'adore le jaune, mais c'est ça, il n'y a pas de non, il n'y a pas de peut-être. C'est oui. En première place, nous, là, Québécois, Canadiens, Québécois, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Fondamentalement. Fondamentalement. You know? Fondamentalement. Tu sais? C'est ça fondamentalement, mais il n'y a pas de non peut-être. C'est oui. Il n'y a pas de non peut-être. Fondamentalement, notre intérêt principalement là, en la politique externe, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Vous comprenez? C'est ça. That's it, that's all, rock&roll. Tu peux pas, c'est non négociable là. 85% de nos exportations vont aux États-Unis. Fait que je sais bien qu'il y a des émotions, puis il y a des choses comme ça, mais notre destin commun, là, en tant que nouvelle émergente civilisation, un collectif de civilisation émergent nouveau, parce que c'est ça qu'on est, au Québec, Canada. Là. Même moi, avec mes réincarnations, des fois j'étais né aux États-Unis, j'ai servi dans l'armée des États-Unis 2 fois. Des fois j'étais né homme-femme. J'ai été né ici québécois, mais avant, en 1688, entre 1688 et 1735, là. Fait que c'est ça, c'était une autre sorte de Québécoise, là, une autre sorte de Québec. Dans ce temps-là, c'était la Nouvelle-France, même pas le Canada d'aujourd'hui. Mais aujourd'hui, puis hier, puis aujourd'hui, puis pour demain, ça sera pareil. Hein. C'est nous, en politique la politique externe, je parle juste de la politique externe, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Il n'y a pas de non. Il n'y a pas de peut-être, c'est oui, oui, oui. Cette déclaration que je viens de faire, que nous, le Québec, le Canada, les Québécois, Canadiens, Canadiens, Québécois, nous, notre politique externe, ça doit être pour avoir les meilleurs en première place. Notre premier intérêt, là, l'intérêt numéro un, fondamentalement, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis économiquement, commercialement, de commerce, de diplomatie, de sujets, de culture, à tous les niveaux avec les États-Unis. Il n'y a pas de négociation là-dessus. C'est une réalité, c'est comme constance, c'est constant, constamment, c'est constance. Comme le symbole pi, là. Comme le symbole pi, c'est de même, tu sais. C'est de même, c'est de même, c'est de même, c'est de même, tu sais. C'est de même. Fait que là, je vais discuter une solution pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Donc, la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, ça intègre la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Puis pourquoi je dis que c'est la seule solution, ou quelque chose, bien sûr qu'il faut qu'on fasse, bien sûr, il faut qu'on fasse cette implémentation de cette théorie, bien sûr, de la refusion de la dette. Et la théorie de la refusion de la dette, bien sûr, ça contient la théorie d'intégration monétaire. La théorie d'intégration monétaire. Ben, c'est la théorie d'intégration monétaire, c'est la théorie financière que les Européens ont faite. Il faut qu'on fasse, tu sais, la théorie de la refusion de la dette, car on est proche d'avoir un effondrement des finances publiques, privées. Moi-même, j'étais en crise financièrement, 10 000 là. Mais à cause que la COVID, ça fait, puis ça continue, hein, les prix continuent d'augmenter. C'est ça le problème vis-à-vis des salaires. C'est pour ça qu'il y a là. Il y a des grèves générales, manières, partielles. De la grève partout, un peu, là. C'est ça le problème, fondamentalement. C'est ça le problème, fondamentalement. C'est ça le problème. Tu sais? C'est ça le problème, fondamentalement. Parce que l'intérêt qu'on paye sur la dette, ça va tellement augmenter durant la COVID que ça ne peut pas soutenir, on ne peut pas soutenir. Hey, salut, t'as-tu pogné quelque chose? Ah ouais, tu l'as-tu avec toi? Ah ouais? T'es bien content, là? T'as-tu une photo?
Oui.
Montre-moi la photo, là. Je ne vais pas te déranger, c'est juste que je suis bien curieux de savoir, là. C'est quoi tes filles avec des verres?
Oui.
OK, tu mets ça des verres vivants, ils les mangent, puis tu leur renvoies. Tes nourrices, tu les donnes là-bas, tu sais. Je pense qu'ils t'ont béni, je pense. Ils ont dit, ah, on va vous bénir. Là. Hey, c'est bon, ça. Oh, wow! Hey, elle est belle. C'est pas le genre, là. Homme, madame,
non,
homme,
c'est
femme.
gros, c'est gros.
C'est gros, énorme.
Écoute, je pense que c'est la première barbotte grosse de même que je fais.
Hey, félicitations, mon oncle.
C'est un petit esturgeon.
Un sturgeon, là. OK, m'a te laissé là-dessus parce que je dois manger. J'ai vraiment faim. Je m'en vais chez nous manger.
Ah, il n'y a pas de problème. Bon
Je te vois comme un bon hamburger en ce moment.
Ah, j'ai mangé avant de descendre.
Ah ouais?
Ben oui.
Moi, j'ai faim, là. J'ai mangé de quoi un matin, là, mais ça fait un bout. Même les verres, ils ont l'air bons.
Yes, tu vois, un peu, je vais les cacher.
Hey, salut, chum. Prends soin, puis ça a fait un bon mon oncle là, qui est là, puis il est en train de faire de la poisson, puis il pêche, puis j'ai pas dit que je suis neurodivergent, je suis un peu bizarre, mais à cause de ça, je suis pas violent. Mais vous voyez, encore une fois, je me suis approché peut-être trop proche. Tu sais, la distance personnelle, c'est des choses que nous, on sait pas, tu sais, parce que notre cerveau est différent. Fait que ces choses-là, la société, sont différentes, tu sais. Fait que c'est des choses, bien sûr, mais hey, c'est des choses, quelque chose de bien sûr que... Ben, c'est des choses, bien sûr, dans le diable, là, que ça fait une fois. J'allais faire une blague parce que je fais la création culturelle du rock&roll, tu sais. Fait que, bien sûr, c'est des choses, bien sûr, il faut qu'on aille, bien sûr, dans ce complexe qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui. c'est de la politique financière maintenant. Politique financièrement, tu sais. Parce qu'on est rendu à avoir proche d'un effondrement, tu sais. C'est d'avoir une politique financièrement, là. Il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation de la TRD en saluant les travailleurs qui vont faire un beau établissement. Ici, juste un peu de couleur sur les bancs, s'il vous plaît. Si vous m'amenez la peinture, je vais faire le bénévolat, les bancs de Montréal, du Mont-Royal en premier. Sur le Montréal, ma deuxième maison. Et bien sûr, c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je fasse. Et bien sûr, c'est dans cette convergence qu'il faut que je fasse. Cette convergence de faire, bien sûr, du qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, à avoir du point d'une dette publique, tu sais. C'est la dette publique, bien sûr, pour avoir fait de la dette publique, bien sûr. C'est d'avoir de la dette publique, bien sûr, pour avoir, bien sûr, dans la dette publique qu'on est rendu en ce moment, pour le faire, bien sûr, dans cette dette, une augmentation du salaire, bien sûr, on est une augmentation du salaire dans cette qu'il faut qu'on garde en distance, mais c'est des choses qu'on doit le faire maintenant, la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, tu sais. C'est la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, tu sais. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation, bien sûr, de cette TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Et bien sûr, c'est ça. TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, tu sais. C'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on fasse, tu sais. C'est des choses, tu sais. Et la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, bien sûr. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, tu sais. C'est des choses qu'il faut qu'on fasse. Maintenant, bien sûr, c'est des choses, bien sûr, de le faire, tu sais. C'est la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. C'est bien sûr quelque chose que je dois le faire dans la circonstance où que je suis rendu, bien sûr, moi-même, tu sais, de faire la TRD. TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, tu sais. Fait que la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Oh. Ils sont joyeux, c'est ça l'important, là. Ils sont joyeux. Ils sont joyeux, hein. C'est important. Fait que la TRD, je vous l'explique maintenant le plus vite possible, parce qu'il faut qu'on fasse la TRD, l'implémentation de la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Super important parce qu'on est on est proche d'avoir un effondrement financier, tu sais. Un effondrement financier. On est proche d'avoir un effondrement financier, bien sûr, d'avoir un effondrement financier, tu sais. C'est des choses, bien sûr, qui sont dans voir de la vérité, tu sais, c'est qu'on ne peut pas soutenir l'intérêt que ça a monté sur la dette publique, qu'on paye aussi dans le privé, là, le coût de l'augmentation de la vie, là, plus les cartes de crédit qui se ramassent, c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on fasse, il faut qu'on vive avec, tu sais. Et tout, puis c'est des choses comme ça qu'il faut qu'on aille, mais c'est des choses qu'il faut qu'on réalise dans cette convergence que c'est fait que c'est la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Ça contient la théorie d'intégration monétaire. On va devoir prendre toute la dette publique-privée, toute la dette publique-privée, toute la dette publique-privée. Mon 10 000, ton 10 000, son 10 000, de côte à côte, toute la dette publique-privée, bien sûr. On va faire une refusion. bien sûr. Et bien sûr, on va faire la conversion de toute la dette publique canadienne, incluant mon 10 000, dans la dette des États-Unis. Dans la dette des États-Unis, dans la dette des États-Unis. Avec la dette des États-Unis ensemble, on va faire l'addition. Et cet argent-là, ça va faire l'addition ensemble, ça va faire on va faire la création d'une nouvelle monnaie qui aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis, puis tout l'argent en circulation de cette nouvelle banque, cette nouvelle monnaie, car dans ma TRD, est inclus à intégrer la théorie de la refusion de la dette, est inclus à intégrer la théorie d'intégration monétaire, qui est la théorie que les Européens ont faite dans les années 90. Dans les années 90, ils ont fait la théorie de la refusion de la dette. Et donc, dans la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, ça a fait bien sûr dans ce point de convergence pour avoir de l'espace, dans la convergence, bien sûr, pour le faire dans ce point d'enroulement. Puis, on va voir là, c'est quoi ça? Là, c'est un parc, ça. Ouais. Et bien sûr, pour qu'on ait rendu, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence, bien sûr, et c'est quelque chose qu'il faut qu'on fasse dans ce point de convergence, tu sais. C'est des choses qu'il faut qu'on aille, tu sais. Qu'on ait ensemble, tu sais. C'est des choses qu'il faut qu'on aille. Et ouais, toute la dette publique-privée, on va apprendre ensemble cette TRD, on va faire une refusion, on va faire bien sûr la création d'une nouvelle banque, une nouvelle condition, puis une TRD de la refusion de la dette, UE, unité de l'échange universel, that. U point unité point échange point universel, U point unité point échange universel, U point unité point échange universel, l'unité d'échange universel aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. On va mettre un taux d'intérêt de 10%, bien sûr. On va faire un taux d'intérêt de 10%, bien sûr, dans le point de convergence. Et c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on fasse. C'est urgent, c'est pour ça que ça presse. Il faut faire l'implémentation de cette théorie, la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Fait que toute la dette publique-privée, notre dette, mon 10 000, ton 10 000, de côte à côte, ramassée ensemble, toute la dette publique-privée canadienne, convertie dans la devise des États-Unis. Tout cet argent-là, on va faire l'addition avec la dette publique des États-Unis. On va faire une monnaie d'échange commune, l'UI, U point unité, point échange, point universel. L'unité d'échange universelle aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis, aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Avec cet argent-là, on va rebâtir l'infrastructure du collectif du Canada des États-Unis, du royaume, du dragon et de la déesse qui danse. On va faire, bien sûr, pour les 63, les 10 provinces, 50 États et 3 régions ensemble. Fait qu'on va mettre un taux d'intérêt de 10%, sur cet argent après. Et on va rebâtir l'infrastructure, on va construire les 44 tunnels basés, inspirés sur la montagne Cheyenne, puis bien sûr, inspirés, bien sûr, par le village souterrain de Montréal, puis un paradoxe, là, le tunnel de Gaza. Tu sais, le tunnel de Gaza, la Hamas, puis qu'ils ont construit en 15 ans, ils ont bâti, bien sûr, le tunnel de Hamas. Le tunnel de Hamas, inspiré aussi parce qu'ils sont 350, bien sûr, entre 350 000 et 600 000 bains de kilomètres en souterrain. Puis on va bâtir ces 44 tunnels dans le cas d'une guerre thermonucléaire au Canada, au Québec, dans les 63 et aux États-Unis ensemble. Ces 44 systèmes de tunnels, dans le cas d'une guerre thermonucléaire, on va pouvoir sauver des millions de citoyens. C'est un partenariat public-privé, la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, ça presse. Il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation aussitôt possible. Parce qu'on est en train d'avoir un effondrement, puis on va devoir bâtir plus de centrales d'Hydro-Québec aussi, financer les gens à l'entraînement physique. On va devoir financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, bien sûr, financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, on va financer le tourisme. Financer le tourisme, bien sûr, on va financer le tourisme. En même temps qu'on va faire le financement du tourisme, on va faire la frontière ensemble, on va finir avec la frontière. On va faire un passeport commun, on va faire un passeport commun, on va faire un passeport commun, on va faire un passeport commun. On va faire un passeport commun. Et bien sûr, on va faire ce passeport commun. Ce passeport commun. Ce passeport commun. On va faire un passeport commun, une unité d'échange commune. Une unité d'échange commune, on va faire un passeport. Et bien sûr, on va faire l'implémentation de ma TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Il faut qu'on s'appresse, c'est urgent. C'est urgent, méchant. Prêter allégeance les gens, juste des amis avec bénéfice seulement. C'est urgent, juste des amis avec bénéfice. Je n'ai pas besoin, j'étais androgyne pansexuel. Juste des amis avec bénéfice. Faut que je sois adulte, noir, blanc, noir, arc-en-ciel. Là. Homme, femme, vous voulez me faire l'amour, mais les amis avec bénéfice seulement. Mais 18 ans et plus, je vous carte comme la SQDC ou pour acheter de l'alcool ou rentrer dans un bar, dans un club. Là, c'est dans un club de nuit là, que je parle, boîte de nuit, mais la TRD, super important, la théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est la solution, quelque chose qui ressemble à ma TRD, c'est urgent, ça presse. C'est ça le problème, tu sais. C'est le problème. TRD, solution. On va faire beaucoup de bien, financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, au tourisme, à l'entraînement physique, bâtir plus de centrales Hydro-Québec, rebâtir l'infrastructure du collectif, bâtir le palais du peuple impérial pour le sport sur la frontière canado-états-unienne, pour le sport à perpétuité où moi et Donald Trump on va combattre dans un combat de boxe. Je fais appel depuis 2018, c'était une erreur de mettre des tarifs sur nous, mais il les a imposés, puis théoriquement, tu sais, avec les choses, ben, je ne vais pas rentrer dans un gros débat philosophique. C'est pour voir les solutions aujourd'hui puis pour demain, c'est la TRD ensemble. Moi, je suis républicain démocrate, centriste, universel. Mon centrisme il est nord-américain centrique. Puis ma trinité de théorie, il faut qu'elle soit implémentée pour la création des 2 institutions de partenariat public-privé. L'armée du dragon pour la S.S.D, la Légion du Collectif de l'Amérique du Nord pour l'Empire, 63 légions. L'armée du dragon seulement pour la S.S.D, sécurité, service, défense, et intégrée avec toutes les forces qui existent, La S.S.D, service, sécurité, défense, et bien sûr l'armée de la déesse. L'armée de la déesse qui danse pour l'environnement. Prêtez allégeance les gens d'une famille. On finit. We finish with some cadence, Dragon Army cadence, freestyle mode, a little shorty, briefy. A little bit of shorty cadence, because we go 3 hours. It's a little bit of shorty cadence. Rock and roll, pledge your allegiance. Free use only if you're friendly on the go, and that's how we gotta get doing with the XYZ, and that's how we gotta get doing with the love side of things, and that's how we gotta get doing for the drills, man, you know, to get it on the love side of things, and here we're gonna get on drill. Hey, we go on the hill, on the left and on the side, we are an army on the might, on the left and on the right, on the set and on the bite, on the set and on the left, on the army that's set, for the left and for the right, you know that we army tight, ready to say, Dragon Army every day, for the S.S.D we see, Dragon Army contingency, that's the hawk up in the sky, flap the wings until I ride, hey, we are not some demons, we are dragons. We are not some demons, we are dragons. We are not some demons, we are dragons. Rock and roll into heaven. For the 63, for the Empire B. Gotta get the red and white and black uniforms. Red and black and white uniforms, 3 new uniforms, 21st century integrated. For the 63, you know how we be. For the left and for the right, Montreal to San Francisco. Rock and roll, we boogie disco. Montreal to San Francisco. Rock and roll, we boogie disco. Montreal to San Francisco. Rock and roll, we boogie disco. Left and right and in the middle, center. That's you know I made a sentence. Dragon Army cadence, that will be Dragon Zero sentence. Is the Dragon Army sentence. That's the cadence. That'll be Dragon Army. Dragon Zero sentence is the Dragon Army cadence. That will be the Dragon Zero cadence. Dragon Zero, General Dragon Zero sentence. Yeah, it be that. Dragon Army cadence. Yeah, you know the Dragon Zero sentence. Yeah, it be that. Dragon Army cadence. Yeah, you know I be the General Dragon Zero sentence. Yeah, it be that. Dragon Army cadence. Yeah, you know what is the General Dragon Zero sentence. Yeah, be that Dragon Army cadence. Yeah, you know I be that General Dragon Zero sentence. Yeah, be that Dragon Army cadence. Rock and roll for the butchers, marching for the bakers and the nurses and the doctors. Dragon Army, we're not demons. We're not demons, we're some dragons marching for the plumbers, electricians and the welders. Some of our dragons are black. Some of my dragons are white. Some of my dragons are black-white. Some of my dragons are homos. Some of my dragons are dragonesses. Some of my dragons are black-white. For the farmers, butchers, plumbers, electricians, nurses, doctors, firefighters. Nurses, doctors, firefighters. Dragon Army cadence, that is our sentence. Dragon Army cadence, that is our sentence. For the 63 we be. It's you and us and me. For the 63 we be. It's you, us, and it is me. For the 63 we be. It's you, us, and it is me. Dragon Army cadence, pledge your legions for the 63, for the Empire. For the Empire of the 63. For the Empire of the 63. Dragon Army cadence B. For the Empire of the 63. Dragon cadence that we be. Sabbath of the Dancing Goddess Dragon Kingdom is tomorrow, Friday. They work out, train, exercise, read, work out, train, exercise, read. Dragon Army sentence B. Dragon cadence that we see. For the left and right and B. Legions. We're not demons, we are dragons. Salute the construction workers on steel toes. Nurses and the daycare workers who change some diapers. Crane conductors, operators. No food waste. Gotta eat me an apple, no food waster. Gotta eat me an apple. No food waster. Gotta eat me an apple, no food waster. Gotta eat me an apple, no food waster. Gotta eat me an apple. Gotta get it. Butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters. Gonna wash it and eat it. Pledge your legions. Was actually feeling hungry, so let's go.